Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can you hear me okay? Welcome to the Historic Preservation Review Board regular meeting. This is a citizen board appointed by the town council to interpret and uphold the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which protects the historic district of Abingdon, which has been designated as the Old and Historic District. Our aim on this board is to provide a positive bridge between property owners of the district and the design review process. So we welcome you to today's meeting. We appreciate your interest and we encourage public participation in our meeting. Your comments are important to our decision-making progress. So when it comes your time to address the board, if you would come forward and give us your name and your address. And also, it looks like we have quite a few people here that I'm assuming would be interested in making some public comments. So what we'll do is, after each item, after the presentation's been made, before any action is taken, we'll give you an opportunity if you want to comment on whatever you'd like to comment on. So, all right, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Here.
Mrs. White?
Here.
And Mr. Giesler?
Here. Okay, approval of the February 1, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any changes or additions? Not, is there a motion to approve them as submitted?
I'll put that in motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Abstain.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Giesler?
Aye. Okay, now the February 15, 2023 special called meeting minutes. Any corrections or changes? Okay, is there a motion to approve them as submitted?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Abstain. I wasn't there, but-
Gotcha. Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
I think I have to abstain on that one too, don't
No, you were here.
I? Was I here? Okay. Aye.
And Mr. Giesler?
Aye. Okay, and as we go through the certificates of appropriateness, this, we'll have a short overview of your project before you need to come up and speak. So even though we sort of call you, if you'll give us just a second before you come up. So first is certificate of appropriateness at 122 West Valley Street, Susan Howard.
Yeah, so Robert and Susan Howard has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness for fencing at the rear of their property. The property is located on 122 West Valley Street. The property is within the old and historic zoning district, sub-district 2. Background, a wooden picket fencing is already located at the rear of the property, creating an area for the residents' garden beds. Access to the site will continue to be West Valley Street and Plum Alley. So as you can see in this picture here, this is what it looks like currently. The applicant is proposing to enlarge the raised bed garden area, remove the south facing fence, and reuse it to expand the fence along the west side of the garden to the fence along the south facing edge of the backyard. As stated by the applicant, the fence is 44 inches in height and the extension will be 16 feet in width. Essentially, the applicants will be relocating the south section of the existing fence and connected into the existing west section of the fence, thus terminating into the south section of fence located at the rear of the property line fronting Plum Alley. So essentially, they're just taking this section right here and just moving it here to bring it down.
Okay. Ms. Howard?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Susan Howard. I live at 122 Valley Street, Northwest. Sorry, y'all saying West Valley, it's funny, y'all. Anyway, I think this is a pretty straightforward request. We just want to relocate a section of fence. We will be adding a gate in that 16-foot section that will be relocated.
And will the gate be the same style as your fence?
Just like the other gates that are, we have a gate, we have actually 2 gates now. One that comes off the driveway and then one that's on the northwest corner of the vegetable garden area. So we're just making the raised bed area larger. We've already put in one raised bed and Bob Howard's working on the other one.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Before we move forward, does anyone from the audience have any comments they would like to make? All right, are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move we approve this application as submitted. It's very little change, actually, and it certainly is within everything in our guidelines. I move to approve it.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Geisler?
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is a certificate of appropriateness for 152 East Valley Street, Kenneth Buer? Buer, okay, all right.
Okay, yes. Kenneth Buer has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness to pave over his existing gravel driveway with asphalt. The property is located on 152 East Valley Street. The property is within the Old and Historic District, Subdistrict 2. Background, according to Places in Volume 2 by Nancy C. King, what is now 152 East Valley Street was built in 1910 and is known as the C.A. Jones House. Access to the site will be from East Valley Street and Plum Alley. Some staff findings. The applicant is proposing to pave over the existing gravel/dirt driveway located along the west and south sides of the property with asphalt. Upon visiting the site, staff found no previous traces of asphalt underneath the existing gravel. According to our design review guidelines, asphalt is not an appropriate material for driveway surfaces.
Okay. Would you like to come forward?
Hi, I'm Ken Buer. So, yeah, the guidelines in paragraph 8A say that the asphalt may be considered as an alternative in areas of steep grade. My lot along Plum Alley there has about a 6% grade, which is fairly steep as roads go. The main reason that we wanted to pave it is that we're seeing a lot of erosion, and you can see from the photos that especially since the repaving of Plum Alley, more and more of the water coming down Plum Alley is ending up in my side yard there, and most of the gravel that was there has been washed away. So I was afraid that if I were to just pour more gravel in there, it's similarly going to disappear over the next few years. And so, given the steep grade exception, I think it's within the guidelines. But also, looking at the neighbors, the two neighbors immediately to to the east have paved parking lots and driveways that connect from Plum Alley to Valley Street. And if I went and looked, down the entire length of Plum Alley and Valley Street. On Valley Street, 52 of 60 driveways are paved asphalt, and on Plum Alley, it's 49 out of 69 driveways are paved. So I think it wouldn't degrade the historic nature of the area.
So, so this is a problem that we run into in the historic district in all sorts of areas. I mean, we have, we discourage the use of K or OG guttering in favor of half round, but you can look through town and find plenty of examples of, and the same thing with racing roofs. I mean, we have, so what I would say is we're really putting an effort into trying to turn it in a different direction instead of just using examples of that already exists. So let's
Understood.
let it happen. Did you consider possibly using pea gravel instead of asphalt and placed in a, I think pea gravel can be placed in some sort of surface to keep it from washing away?
So sort of pressed.
Right. Did you consider?
I did not.
Would you consider that?
I don't think it would be as nice as the paving, just from my preference, but.
Comments?
Well, it's a difficult decision for us, and we know it is for you. I know that I feel pretty strongly that we need to follow the guidelines if we can, and as Byron was saying, to hold the line where we can on important things. The nature of Plum Alley is so important, and you've got a very important contributing house there. If you possibly could not do asphalt on it, but pick another surface that's more.
Yeah, well, like I said, I did read the guidelines, and section
Yes.
8A does make the exception for
Yes,
steep
you
grade,
did.
and we do have a pretty steep grade right there, and as you
Yes.
can see by the photos.
Yes.
It is a pretty.
Repaving Plum Alley did raise it up a little bit, which is going to be something I guess we're going to have to deal with.
So I guess the steep grade exception is because it washes the gravel away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did put gravel on that area about 3 years ago when we did the rest of the yard.
What type of gravel did you use when you put down the?
We used gravel from the area where that we added grass. We pulled that gravel off and put it on the driveway. Pretty much all of that is gone now.
I think one of the
For
issues
years.
as well is that when the staff inspected the property, there is no evidence of asphalt, so that on your particular piece of property, so that makes it harder for us to approve asphalt. It's never been there. I know you say your neighbors have it, but that was probably pre our board, and we're really trying to protect, we're charged with protecting the historic section of
I
Abingdon, and so
totally
we
understand
have to
that,
start
and I
somewhere.
understand the purpose of it. and-
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think we really need to maybe look at some alternatives.
Would you be willing to explore the pea gravel, what is it called, a mastic or something that it's embedded in to keeps it from washing away? I don't know how that compares with expense. I mean, it may be less, it may be the same, I don't know, but is that a possibility? Or is your
Yeah, I
heart
really-
set on asphalt?
Yeah, I really didn't want to go that way.
I just feel like if we make an exception here, we're gonna really have trouble enforcing this going forward with other properties. I have a property that's gravel and it does wash away, but then we know that every few years we just have to bring in more gravel. It's kind of the nature of these old homes.
I'm not really for sure what the term is that you would use, but I was actually checking on some gravel today for Watauga Elementary School. And there is I don't know what you would call it, like a border or something that will hold the gravel in place. And it's just kinda like a wall, kinda like if you were doing a flower bed. It's just periodically, and it kinda holds the gravel from floating away. So I don't know if that's something that you might would look into, but
Have you discussed with the town just fixing any of, if you're saying it's too high, can that be changed?
Well, I think, when Plum Alley was repaved, it just happened that before they repaved it, it was heaved in the opposite direction, so the
Oh.
drainage was, just by luck, the drainage was not in my direction. Now the new paving makes Plum Alley pretty much level, and so a lot of the water that comes down goes into my property, much more than it did a year ago when, before the repaving.
Will you be parking on the entire area that you propose to?
Yeah, there's room for about 2 or 3 cars there, and I have 2 cars, so.
Just heading in from the alley or coming in
Yeah,
and turning?
Yeah, generally I come in and turn around, but
So you looks like you have parking spaces there beside the garbage receptacles, is that?
yeah,
And then you have a drive that goes all along the side of the house?
Right.
So you would be paving all of that
yeah,
area?
that was the intent, yeah.
I'm just gonna add one thing to this, that driveway entrances cannot be wider than 16 feet. So even if you were proposing to pave back here, you would have to have a 16-foot location that goes in and then opens up into a larger area. So you can't
Okay,
pave
yeah.
directly from Plum Alley or even the gravel area. You can't have that all just one open thing where 3 or 4 cars could pull out. And so it just causes too much
Okay,
confusion on the
yeah,
road.
I think that's fine.
So is there, the area where you park, I guess that was all gravel at one point, it's just, it looks like some of the grass has grown
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah, it's moss mostly now. 'Cause it almost never drains.
Well, I mean, this presents a really difficult situation for us because that's a lot of asphalt, you know, in an area that right now is very green and very, you know, traditional looking. So do we, any further questions? Any comments from anyone we want to make?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
When the alley was repaved, of course, we have a paved driveway, so we're one of those people that before
The same.
a period of time. But anyway, when the alley was repaved, we get a lot of we were getting a lot of flooding in our driveway. So we installed, it's asphalt, but just sort of like a little berm at the back of the property to keep the water out. So, I mean, that, I don't know if you consider being able to do something like that, but if you go back with gravel, that might reduce
Yeah.
the water.
Mhm.
I think when Vicky did hers, did you put a berm on yours?
Yeah, there's a berm already down Plum Alley, and they leave it so high that the water couldn't come in on it. I had to keep it at least 12 to 16 inches.
But you're not driving across that when you park, are you?
Right, no, I'm not.
I mean,
But you would be, wouldn't you?
Yes,
You
that's
would be,
what
yeah. Difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the difficulty of the decision, and I understand the purview of the board to try to maintain the historic nature of the town, and I appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons that we bought this house.
And we're
that's one of the reasons-
glad to have you there.
Yeah.
So, certainly appreciate that, but I think that this does fall within the steep grade exception, and therefore is in line with the district.
You know, the other problem we have is that if we allow this, then you will be pointed to by the next person as to, well, that's what we,
That's what we're trying to
We
avoid.
we just haven't allowed this in so many years, I think I'm right on that.
not that I can remember whether
Not
there's
that I
not been
can
any
remember. I
existing
can't remember.
asphalt.
Yeah,
Me
when-
either.
when-
Well,
yeah.
There's a house on Church Street in Plum Alley that
Mhm.
just paved.
We would,
last year.
that's the person we were just talking about.
Oh, okay.
And that, I believe if I'm right, remembering that one, that was originally there because it was a carport.
Mhm.
And now the carport is gone, but it has been repaved, but it was there.
Yeah,
There was
but
asphalt to start with.
Yeah.
It was asphalt in a different spot where the house is, now the new asphalt in a new spot.
And
But, yeah, I get that.
we've
I'm just doing the same
received
thing
significant
that people are gonna
criticism
do.
for that also, by the way.
Understood.
Yes, we did.
Understood.
I wonder if the town could provide a berm there that's not, that's easier, that would be enough to divert water.
Could that
I mean,
yeah.
I think
if,
that-
if you do have to end up having the gravel there, if that could be there, that somebody could drive across, like you could drive over a speed bump when you're going slowly and not bump the roof of the car.
It could mitigate the drainage problem in another way.
Yeah.
We have added some asphalt berms along Plum Alley in different locations.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Well, are we ready for a motion?
Well, regretfully, I'll make the motion that we deny the application as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye,
Mr. Geisler?
Aye.
sorry.
I mean, if you want us to, well, I guess with gravel, if you do gravel, you don't need our approval because you're doing,
Wait,
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not-
the same gravel
Yeah.
is there, I can do that, yeah.
mean, the one thing I would say is I do think that you could find a pea gravel solution that would solve your problem with the wash away by having it embedded in, an embed that keeps the pea gravel in place. I know that's they're capable of doing that, and we do approve those kinds of, surfaces, so that.
Would I need another, would I need to come back, or can we get a continuation or something on this?
If you're doing.
Did you have
That's just
that?
a waiver.
Yeah.
It's just a waiver.
Mason Place?
Uh-huh. Yes.
So he could just do that with a waiver?
Yep.
Yeah, so that would be easy.
You know, that lasted pretty well.
Well, that's true. Our house on Valley Street, the driveway going into it, that's what we did because of all this. We put the pea gravel on it, and it was pretty steep coming off of Mason Place into the driveway. But I'm not aware of any kind of flooding we ever had, any kind of.
But didn't you have it's like the first coat that is put down before asphalt.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
I guess it's
I
a
could find
binder
out.
of some sort.
I could find out what that was.
And then the gravel, and then it's rolled to sort of
Yes.
embed it.
Yes.
So I can look into that. Is there a what's the procedure for the waiver that I need?
You just apply and, it's done administratively.
Okay, is there another fee for that?
I don't know what the fee is for a waiver, $50,
$50.
yeah.
Okay. That way we apply this fee to that.
Can we do that?
Can we do that?
If you all wanna make that motion, you could make that motion tonight, that if he comes back and his project, applies for a waiver, that you would want that. Every time we take a fee, it's because staff time's being used
Waive
towards
the
the
waiver.
review, so.
So do we have a motion to do that?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
All right.
Mr. Geisler?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a certificate of appropriateness, actually two, for Mark Hurt, one at 159 West Main Street and one for 165 West Main Street for signage.
So yes, Mark T. Hurd, applicant / owner, and Jessica Cook of Jerry Signs representative have requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign. The proposed signage will be freestanding and be .063 aluminum with vinyl graphics. The property is located on 159 West Main Street. The property is within the Old and Historic District, Subdistrict 1. Some background, currently there is no existing signage located at the proposed location, located at the rear of the property. However, there is an existing freestanding sign located at the front of the property fronting West Main Street. A metal signpost with a wrought iron bracket, both pre-finished black, make up the freestanding sign structure. The signpost design and materials were used as a template for the business's approved freestanding sign structure located next door at 165 West Main Street in November of 2022. The existing sign has a white background with black text and gold incorporated into the logo. The existing sign measures 18 inches by 30 inches equaling 3.75 square feet. Staff findings, the applicant is proposing to place the proposed freestanding sign at the rear of the property fronting Plum Alley. The freestanding sign structure will consist of 3-inch by 3-inch decorative steel poles, pre-finished black. The freestanding sign structure poles match in material and color with the existing freestanding sign structure located at the front of the property fronting West Main Street. However, when comparing the two, the Plum Alley freestanding sign structure is less ornate than the one found fronting West Main Street, which has a wrought iron bracket pre-finished black. The proposed sign itself will be fabricated from .063 aluminum with vinyl graphics. The existing sign fronting West Main Street is carved CNC. A near identical color scheme with a white background, black lettering, and gold design are found between both the proposed Plum Alley sign and the West Main Street existing sign. The height of the proposed pole will be 72 inches, and the proposed sign will measure 18 inches by 24 inches, equaling 3 square feet. The existing sign measures 18 inches by 30 inches, equaling 3.75 square feet.
Welcome.
I've lost my glasses. Enough for us to get by. And both of these are the same client. So I've got 159 West Main,
Yeah.
and beside of it, I think we have 165 West Main.
Yeah, I guess we're doing them separately, if
Okay,
if
so
that's
we'll
okay.
start with, I guess, the first one, 159, which is the parking sign for the original Mark T. Hurt Law Office. Mrs. Hurt asked for us to make a sign that was similar to Davenport, which is the parking lot over, the same kind of structure. Theirs is wood, which over time that rots, and so instead of wood, we were gonna make the same shape, but prime it and paint it black. And parking signs are typically metal. I think that Davenport, we may have made them a hanging metal sign. She was kind of going with what the neighbors have. And they have, I guess, but the need for parking signs for each lot. So she asked for both of these at the same time, but we're starting.
Okay. And would this just be a second sign at each location?
It is, they have their main ID signs that are facing Main Street. They're CNC carved, painted signs like Cary Street, Davenport. These are on the back lots. Like right now, Cary Street, they have a parking sign that goes into that pea gravel parking lot right there. And then the next lot over, I think each one of the tenants has something to indicate that it's their parking lot at the edge. And that's what she wants. And if we need to do any adjustments or alterations to the design or the structure or anything, the size, this was just what we had offered that she liked.
Okay.
And thought we'd go from there.
Does anyone have any
So-
questions or comments?
This one doesn't have, this is just one, there's nothing hanging off the first one, it's just, and then the annex one will have a second.
This one will go behind each of the buildings. The first one, they did the Mark T. Hurt Annex as their second building where Conway used to be.
Yeah.
And this sign would be at their back of the building.
Right.
Pointing you in. So it would have a little hanging metal sign that says parking for the
Okay.
annex on that one. And then the one beside of it, which is also them parking for Mark T. Hurt, just parking. So they're doing both buildings with the parking lot.
You know, there's one sign per building on the alley, which we're looking at right
One,
here.
yes,
Yes.
correct.
So
There is
yes.
no hanging sign
Yeah.
from this. This will all be one piece.
Any other questions? Does anyone from the audience have any comments? If not, are we ready for a motion? I guess we can do them together or separate, however you're
I
all.
mean, is there anything you wanna add to the second one, Jessica, or?
I think we'll make them identical, and they are, I believe, both double-sided, so that people can see them from both sides, facing out toward the alley. So I would want you to.
Thank you for pointing that out.
There we go.
I think that's how the others are too, so I would want you to know that.
On the second one where you have the annex parking for, does that make the sign significantly bigger, or is it still gonna fit within our?
They'll be the exact same size, what we did on the design. I wish you could see it.
Yeah, I
There we
have
go,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
The lettering will just say annex on that one, parking versus just parking, but they'll both be the
Okay.
same size.
Got it.
So they match, but they wanted to have that difference for the annex, so they know that it's a different building where they're sending folks.
Okay,
I make a motion that we approve both the sign for the back of the parking lot and for the back of the annex parking.
I'll second that.
okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Geisler?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, now, next is certificate of appropriateness, 146 East Main Street, the Nature Conservancy.
Yeah, so the Nature Conservancy applicant/owner and John Michael Davis, representative, has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness to amend the previously approved enlargement of the rear shed roof structure covering the rear exterior door facing Troopers Alley. This amendment is in response to a stop work order issued on February 10th of 2023 by town staff due to a violation found conflicting with the previously approved COA of April 2022. The property is located on 146 East Main Street. Violations were the roof sheathing does not match the existing standing seam roof observed prior to expansion. Existing roof was standing seam with no striations, pre-finished black. The roof sheathing observed now is standing seam with striations and with exposed fasteners. The shed roof overhang expands out slightly further than what was presented and approved at the April 20th, 2022 HPRB special called meeting. The property is within the Old and Historic District, Sub-District 2. Some background, prior to the expansion of the shed roof structure, the existing had a shed-like roof structure hanging over an exterior door visible from Trooper's Alley. The current structure had a standing seam, blackish gray metal roof and measures roughly 4 feet by 4 feet. The applicant proposed a new shed-style overhang matching the existing materials, color, and style. The existing standing seam roof is a grayish-black with no striations, and the support beams, along with all other wooden elements, were painted white. The shed-style roof was proposed to extend out to be flush or nearly flush with the wall to the east of the overhang. The overhang was proposed to extend to the west, covering the new incoming electrical service as seen in the drawing submitted. The proposed post will be 4-inch by 4-inch posts matching the existing. So let's just go back here. Staff issued a stop work order on February 10th due to the violations I mentioned previously. The applicants proposed to keep the shed roof overhang as seen. This requested approval of a certificate of appropriate is meant to amend the previously approved roof sheathing and enlargement of the rear shed roof structure, covering the rear exterior door facing Trooper's Alley. Currently, the shed roof overhang is a pre-finished black standing seam roof with striations and exposed fasteners. And according to the design review guidelines, this is not an appropriate material. The overall depth of the shed roof is roughly 10 feet by 8 inches and extends significantly past the bump out. And that's all I have for you.
Okay. Welcome.
Good evening. So as you see, what we've constructed is, I guess we have two things here. We have the standing seam roof, and then we have the depth of the awning. The awning's roughly 3 foot larger than what was originally proposed. I've come before y'all today to see if we can grant that variance to keep that structure as is. If you look to the photos to the right of the building, there's a pretty significant bump out off their neighbor, off their existing building. And more importantly, the Nature Conservancy would love to have a bigger awning than originally. The original one was 4 foot off the building, gave minimal coverage for the people using their newly remodeled office downstairs in the basement. So we were looking to get them more coverage in that space and cover up some of those exterior utilities. The roof, honestly, it was just, we grabbed the material. The back of the building, the garage is a screw down roof. I think there's a photo of it. I think my superintendent grabbed that material and that's what we used to match. We can pull that off and put on a new one, no problem, but that was kind of what happened with the roof.
So in the photograph, there's support beams. They look like they're kind of slanted out into the parking lot. Is that just an optical illusion, or?
I think it is.
Oh.
Those posts are, they're on a concrete foundation. They're level and plumb.
Oh, it's just when this picture was.
Maybe it's just optical illusion from that angle. It's obviously not 100% finished. The structure is the same built as the original design. We just haven't painted the exterior to match. We haven't painted those posts and the underside of it to match.
But as finished, those are going to come down onto the slab, not out into the gravel.
Those would come as is what I'm.
Onto the gravel.
Onto the gravel, yes, ma'am. So that is what's supporting the structure.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any comments or?
I have a question about the roof. The roof that's on the building itself is a true standing seam, not what you've got on this.
On the current building?
Yes, on the building itself.
You know,
It is. I think it is.
Yeah, there's, for some reason, it might have been in the past where it seems like the part of it was, as you see on the garage, but the bulk of it is the true standing seam. That's original.
Right.
So there's been some renovations, but this was also following in the mode of it's keeping to the true standing seam, so that's
Yeah.
why he's here today,
Yeah.
because it went from what was probably an improper placement at one time with those exposed fasteners on some parts of the roof. And so now we're trying to go back to what was there originally.
So this is another area, just like with the asphalt, where, there are examples in the historic district of roofs that are like, this type of roof, which is really more of an economical roof that's used on barns or outbuildings, not a true standing seam with, and we don't allow external fasteners, and we are constantly having people wanting to use these roofs in the historic district because they're less expensive, and this is again really becoming a big issue, because the second we allow one, it's used by everyone else wanting one, as an example. So, that is a problem. I think if you would be amenable to taking that off and putting a true standing seam.
More than happy to.
So it matches the rest of the roof
We
anyway?
can
Yeah,
most certainly do that.
okay, good.
Absolutely.
And I guess the other issue is then the
Size.
size. So,
I don't have any problem with that extending beyond the
I don't-
existing building.
I
It's
don't either. I
the
don't think
material.
that violates
It's the
anything.
material, I mean, it's just like sitting on that gravel looks weird in this picture, so I need a.
But you said the posts are in concrete.
Yes,
They are.
there's a concrete foundation where those are properly attached
Right.
and fastened to that foundation, absolutely.
I think they're meaning though that it's on this porch part right here.
It
not
just
in the
doesn't look
gravel.
square to me. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's just, it
It-
looks like
it's-
it's,
You have another angle?
This is the only one that I have right here.
Let's see,
Well,
maybe back to
This
another
wall
angle.
looks crooked. It's just the,
This is
no,
the
I
picture.
can discern the difference in
It's-
those two things. That's not the point I'm
it's
making.
foreshortened.
Scroll, that's not a, I mean, I know you
It's the
can't see the
camera.
bottom, but it's that lower photo or upper photo there.
Yeah.
Gabe.
Well, I'm sure it is square. That's just, I thought maybe it was just temporarily short up in that photograph or something. That was why I asked.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't have a better angle either.
Do we have any comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion. Move that we allow the extension.
There's one comment.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a comment about that. So if that support beam is hit by a car, the car's parked there, and would that be an issue with the cars? If for some reason they were to not judge their distance very well if they were to hit that support beam?
I don't know how much traffic will be in that back parking lot. Nick Proctor's here from the Nature Conservancy, could probably speak upon that.
But yeah, there's other utilities that are on that slab, and we've never had any issues with parking. I think that, part of it is that,
Yeah.
where the previous posts on that shed structure were, they were actually, you would walk out of that door, and if you're carrying stuff, you would almost walk into it, and so trying to kick it out a little bit more has been very helpful, and this has been in place now since February 10th, and I think it's been well received, and, we've kind of adapted and everything to it, but I think point well taken, but I don't think it's a major issue.
I mean, if it became an issue, you could put concrete wheel stops there.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I'll continue?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the extension of the shed as it is, but we do not approve the material of the roof, that we require it to be the standing seam that matches the main roof.
With no exposed
Right.
fasteners.
No exposed fasteners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye,
And Mr. Geisler?
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you all.
And
Thank
just,
you.
I mean, to make sure we're clear, when we say striations, we mean it just has the single raised seam, and then there's no,
It's flat all the way
it's
between those.
completely flat,
But it's
there's no.
but what you've
Yep.
got on the roof there is correct.
Yeah, and you can see the difference when you stand back at Troopers Alley. You
Yeah.
can visually see
You can.
the precedent between the two, and we're happy to
Okay.
accommodate.
Yeah, not a
Thank you.
problem.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay, sorry. Next is Certificate of Appropriateness 117 West Main Street, Mary Sorensen.
Just give me a second here while I pull this up, since, just to see it full plan. There we go. Okay. Mary Sorensen, applicant slash owner, has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness for exterior changes in landscaping. The property is located on 117 West Main Street, and it's in Sub-District 1 of the OH. Some background, the 1.5-story craftsman-style structure dates back to the early 1930s and is a contributing structure. The garage located at the rear of the property is not contributing. Access to the site will continue to be West Main Street and Plum Alley. Okay, so this is kind of a long one in multiple different steps, so if you have any questions for me, maybe at a certain section, it'd be best to ask them then. So for the front yard slash courtyard, the applicant is proposing to install a fountain in the southeast corner of the property with a rock garden close behind, so right here. In between the existing concrete retaining wall and the existing porch, there will be a brick paved area set in a herringbone pattern, matching the existing town sidewalk. This you can see right here. Within the brick paved area, 6 benches will be evenly placed around the edge of the courtyard. At the center will be a rectangular area laid in a hexagon-shaped tiles, similar in material and color to the square tiles used for the existing porch floor. In the southwest corner, there will be a stone fire pit set in a circular area of white pebbles, as you can see right here. From the fire pit, the southwest corner of the structure, a walkway of white pebbles will lead to a garden consisting of different flora. So right here, you can see this walkway. On either side of the white pebble walkway will be a crushed coral granite pebbles. 3 more benches will be located in the southwest corner of the front yard. Against the existing fence will be a semicircular deck, as you can see right here. On the section of fencing where the semicircular deck will be a mural. All existing fencing is to remain and be painted white. So the mural would be approximately right here. Do you have any?
Can you show,
Can
Let me
we
see.
make that any bigger?
Yeah, let me see if I can try and get that. Let's see here if I download it.
There's some-
So that's the front section where we just went over. Do any of you have any questions for me, or should I
Where's the
proceed?
mural, Gabe?
yeah, where's this mural?
Right here. Beyond this part of fence right here.
So facing Main Street?
Yep. So, and this is where the semicircular deck is, the fire pit with a white stone, kind of a circle. You'll have another walkway made of that same white stone, kind of going into a garden area. On each side, you'll have coral crushed stone, charcoal kind of color. Fountain over here with another kind of rock garden. And then this will be a full herringbone laid brick area. There are walkways there currently now, but it's sort of a brick walkway with garden areas in between all of them. And this kind of tile you can also find on the existing porch. It's kind of like a clay tile kind of, and it looks brick color. So
What
it'd
are
be-
the rectangles, the 4 rectangle things?
They're
Those-
benches.
Those are benches?
Yeah, these are benches right here. So these are all gonna be the 6 benches right here, and then here's the other 3 right here that you see.
Okay, go ahead.
In the backyard, here, let me get back. This way we can get there. There we go. In the backyard will be another fire pit with 2 trolley cars. One trolley will be a food truck, while the other will be a party/photo trolley. Both structures are required to be mobile. The intent of the applicant is to finish the trolleys to appear as the trolleys of Abingdon once had. Metal frame awnings with plexiglass covers will be attached to the trolley cars. No change to the parking area service will occur. So here's kind of what the awning would kind of look like in a sense. And then here's the 2 trolleys that would be right here. Now, they do have to be mobile, and they would be looked at as a food truck, used for
for the town of Abingdon. Food trucks, they do have to be mobile, they just can't be stationary, they have to be able to move.
Let's
We're
go through
gonna-
the whole thing and then we'll open it up for comments.
Things don't have engines in them.
Okay. Go ahead.
Main structure, here, let's get it all centered here. There we go. The applicant is proposing to paint the shed, dormer, siding, front door, arched porch fascia, and corbels bungalow house blue. The trim and remaining architectural features are to be finished extra white. As observed on site by staff, clapboards, doors, windows, trim, exposed rafters, fascia, and corbels are painted white currently. There's a frame rear addition. The applicant is proposing to paint the siding bungalow house blue. Trim and remaining architectural features are to be finished extra white. On the west elevation, a craftsman style wooden door will be replaced, will replace the existing wooden raised 6-panel door. And here's kind of what the doors would look like, the craftsman style doors right here. The existing metal storm door will be removed. On the east and north elevations, an opening will be cut to allow for installation of an identical craftsman style door proposed for the west elevation. So this is where the existing door is. It has an awning, a metal awning over it with a storm door. And this is where the cutout would happen on the opposite side. An existing unfinished wooden deck will be torn down and reconstructed on the, it says here on the plans, but it's really gonna be here on the, directly where it is existing. She just has to repair it because it is really raw, the posts and everything that hold it up. And that will be pre-finished white. Lighting will be attached to the deck. This is the same type of lighting that you've seen in the, one we've seen in other properties that have come forward. It's kind of this just bulb, very clear light. Lighting will be attached to the deck. A screen will shield the deck from Plum Alley, and this is kind of what they're proposing for the shielding or the screen.
Is there a dimension on that? I can't, it's too hard, small for me to.
For the, for which
For
one?
that,
Screen.
No, I think it's supposed to just cover this section right here of where the door is, so if I had to guess, maybe 10 feet, maybe?
About 10.
About 10, I would probably guess. Shall I move on to the
Yes.
garage?
Mhm.
Okay,
sure.
let's go back here. Okay. The applicant is proposing to paint the wooden or wood substitute clapboards bungalow house blue. Trim and all other architectural features will have a white snow finish. The wooden recessed paneled roll-up garage door closest to Plum Alley will be replaced with a recessed 2-panel French doors pre-finished white snow. After speaking with the applicant, they're more gonna be like a craftsman style door. And then a metal frame awning with plexiglass cover will be attached over the north-facing window. So here's where the existing window is, and the awning is gonna be going right over here, and this is Plum Alley right here that you see. And then on the south, here's just going by describing what's already there in a sense for the garage. On the south elevation of the existing garage, a wooden raised 6-panel door pre-finished white with security code pad is located in the western third of the south elevation. An 8/8 double hung sash window clad in vinyl is centered on the south elevation. On the east elevation are 2 square single car with wooden recessed paneled roll-up garage doors, pre-finished white, with an exterior light on each of the garage doors' outer edges. And then on the north elevation is another 8/8 double hung sash window, clad in vinyl, centered on the facade. The west elevation has no openings. The side gabled roof sheathing consists of gray asphalt shingles with K-style guttering and rectangular downspouts. On both the north and south elevations, at the peak of the roof is a triangular vent. And that is all I have for you. If there's any questions from any of those topics in there, be more than happy to discuss. If not,
Can I just
Yeah.
ask you if we have
mhm.
dimensions on any of this stuff or materials? I mean, you're just saying, you know, a craftsman door. What is
There would be wooden.
wooden doors?
wooden
How about
doors.
these vinyl windows?
They would be wooden clad with vinyl.
Wooden clad with vinyl.
The existing ones are wooden clad with vinyl. That's what we were going through the
Replacing
existing one.
like with like.
They're not gonna be replacing the windows. That was just a an overview of what's there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome.
Hi,
Hi.
good evening.
And if you could give us your name and address, please?
Mary Sorensen, 117 West Main Street, Abingdon.
Okay. And would you like to add anything to the presentation?
No, it was fairly accurate. I think the doors are fiberglass, not wood, because
Okay.
they are lower maintenance. And the windows are white-on-white vinyl, because that's what most of the windows in the house are, except for a few. So some of the old ones on the top story have been, the top floor had been replaced with vinyl windows, white on white. The lower level main house, the 1933 portion of the house, has the original sash wood windows. The downstairs was a mixture. It's just all over the place, so.
Yeah, I know the front windows, they are wood, and then they kind of have a storm protection over the window ones, yeah. As you kind of see typically through the OH district now, where you see all the panes and everything in the back, and then the storm is in front.
All right, I guess we should open up for comments for anyone. If you could come up and speak at the microphone, because this is on the internet, and so people outside won't be able to hear if you don't come up and speak. So, if anyone would like to comment on the proposal?
Hi, everybody.
If you would, just give us your name and address.
My name is Scott Madison. I live at 118 Valley Street, directly behind the subject property. And I've lived here for about 4 years, and I bought the property because it was just a great property. But I have a deck that's about 12 or so feet off the ground, and if you go on a little bit farther, you can see a little bit more. There you go. That's what I get to see, except there's a great big bus that's kind of made like a trolley, but it's really a motorized vehicle with an engine that doesn't work. And it's going, could you put the plot map thing up here? So basically, all right, yeah, so you see this, they're taking it right up to the edge of this trailer, right up to Plum Alley. You see a car right there on Plum Alley. All right, so there is going to be a structure on Plum Alley. Can we go right back to here? It's gonna be right here. The bus sits where these cars are, and then another bus. We're gonna put 2 buses here, and this is gonna come up to here. That's going to, whatever the great plan is, and I'm certainly not a business expert, but I do know something about traffic and this particular area. It's tight. Plum Alley's a 10 mile an hour speed limit zone, and it's violated a lot. But I'm thinking about, this is going to be a party bus, coffee house, event center things on Plum Alley. It doesn't seem like that fits into the historic context of Plum Alley. I know the board has guidelines of how it does its business, but I just ask that you take this into consideration, that there's the people on Plum Alley, on this particular block, from College to Church, we're pretty much all here on Plum Alley. We're all here right now. But we don't like this idea. You ask for comments, I'm giving you comments.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so here's some of the factors that we'd like you all to consider formally before you approve this. First of all, the safety to the people. We've got a 3-year-old that lives just 2 houses down. Runs around the neighborhood, and we're worried about, just additional traffic. It's already bad on Plum Alley. We're looking at having a food truck that actually is more like a food trailer that will be there, 2 of them, and that's gonna take up an awful lot of this parking space that they already have here. So, and this, all right, perfect, yes, great. So you look at this, folks, all right, so they've got awnings here, and they've got a door here, and they got a garage, and they got 5 parking spots. Owner, resident, somebody that works here, and 2 parking spots for the business. Okay, people are gonna come in here, they're gonna have to come back. They're not gonna be able to turn around. I have to back out into Plum Alley. It's not a good situation. I live on Plum Alley. I know how hard it is to get onto Plum Alley safely by exiting that little tight area. And 12 feet from here is my landscape, the edge of my property. I live in the nice landscape place that Margaret Holvey did it. Everybody knows Margaret up here, and she did it. It's a wonderful, wonderful area. And that's another issue. Okay, we got to talk parking, traffic flow. We got a party bus, so we're gonna have people gathering in my backyard. Now, I used to work in the nuclear power business. I was a corporate attorney for them, those people. And we had people that would say, not in my backyard. They were NIMBYs. I'm going to be a NIMBY here, not in my backyard. Because I will show you that on my deck that sits up, I look directly down to these trailers that are gonna be there. Now, they're trailers. They're not gonna drive them off, somebody else come in here. They're trailers. And, all right. So it's a tight squeeze, a long bed crew cab truck isn't going to be able to navigate this on a routine basis. Y'all have been Plum Alley, you walk behind here, you see my house. So, I don't care for this thing. I've got some other concerns. What happens when the business fails? What happens to those trailers when the businesses fail? 20% of all small businesses in the United States fail after 1 year. 50% of all businesses in the United States fail after 5 years. So what happens, what's the town or the board or the property owner going to do with those trailers? All right, so their food business goes out of business, whatever. What are they gonna do? They're just gonna leave these things there and try to get some other business in there. I don't know what that's gonna be, and this is all it's speculative, so we really can't make decisions on speculation, but we can certainly consider probabilities. One last thing, I moved in the house that had a law office, Barry Proctor, law practice, and his wife Mary had a stitchery store there. She sold stitching stuff. But we're really concerned, the neighbors, all of us, about the noise, the trash, possibly, loitering, privacy, loud music, a negative impact on my property value. I'm right behind it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We
All right, thank
appreciate your input. Anyone else that would like to?
Well, I just have a question.
Well,
Can you come on up, because people watching at home are gonna be lost if they, thank you.
Susan Howard, 122 Valley Street. My question is, for you, the two trolleys, are they gonna stay there all the time? Because when you say party bus, I've been to Asheville and Nashville, and you see these party buses that travel around the city. So is it something that will move from the area, or is it stationary?
I prefer not to drive it, not to move it, but it can be moved, it is
Okay.
movable.
All right.
Like,
I when you
I don't wanna
say party
drive
bus,
it myself, so yeah.
when you say party bus, I just wasn't clear exactly about what
Okay,
that is. so.
all right, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make comments?
May I respond to their comments?
Sure.
If you don't mind. First of all, I appreciate your input. I haven't had the opportunity to meet many of you, and
We've met.
yeah, we have, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for the soup. I've owned a small business for 40 years. Since 1983, I founded Cedar Hill Design Center, and it was one of the premier interior design studios in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So as far as what's next and when I fail, I don't intend to fail. My God never fails. And I have also had a nonprofit ministry that I have run and continue to run for the last 30 years. Since 1993, I have been doing ministry work. I'm an ordained pastor. My intention when I say party bus is to provide something for small groups, wedding showers, baby showers, in small groups. I lead Bible studies regularly. We're not exactly wild party people, but we may praise the Lord. So we may sing and celebrate. But when I bought this property, the Proctors had, unfortunately, after Barry died, it was in really rough shape. It badly needs painting. It is, the entire back parking lot was already paved with asphalt. Not my first choice, but I did not want to tear it all up. I'm a widow. My intention is to live there and provide hospitality for the community. That's the reason the front landscaping is done the way it is. When I bought the property, it was for this purpose of both my own living and my own housing and ministry. So the short-term rentals, the reason for the downstairs doors that are being added is because I wanted to do 2 short-term vacation rentals to use as essentially getaway marriage reconnection places. And so I'm writing particular do-it-yourself sort of ministry opportunities for couples to come or mothers, daughters, whatever, a reconnection place. The same is true with the trolley. The purpose is connections. After COVID, after everybody got masked off, after everybody had to have 6 foot of distance, and the separation in our communities has done great community damage. My thought when I bought the property was, I am right here at a convenient place. I can have Bible studies that feel very homey in my home. I've been conducting Bible studies for over 40 years. I typically have gone into prisons. You all might be a little friendlier crowd. I've talked to Ann Proctor, and she wants us to start a widow's Bible study. I have recovered from, my husband passed away, he was a pastor. He passed away almost 8 years ago now. And that's my intention, is to begin more hospitality, to engage the community. I've become involved in 2 of the churches here in town, and I want to host small groups. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for, is a way to have something for people to meet that is not super expensive or that is free for nonprofits, and we can use it. And at the same time, I can use a property which is zoned, that entire property, not just the house, but I was informed when I purchased the property that this is a mixed-use property, and I assumed that that was the entire lot, not just the physical property of the house. I do respect and understand wanting to maintain the historical look of the house. As a matter of fact, I designed recently, I'm just finished a house that's a craftsman-style house in Grand Prairie, Texas, in downtown Grand Prairie, that I built and designed for a client, a lawyer, that met that criteria. I've also designed the Historical Society home for the city of Cedar Hill. I've done multiple award-winning projects across Dallas, Fort Worth. I've won Best Interior Design in 3 different parade homes. My work has been published. I do know what I'm doing, and I'm not trying to go against anybody or anything. I just wanted a place where people can come from the theater. When I got here, the first time I came up here, the theater was crowded, and there was no place for those people to sit or to go. So my thought is to provide hospitality before the plays. And when we talk about food, I'm talking about charcuterie boards. I'm talking about other restaurants providing food. I don't want to cook, and I don't want to be cooking in there. I want to just use it for a place for service. So that's my intention. And as far as the parking goes, sir, I do understand what you're saying, but there is room, even for that longer truck, to turn around, as I've demonstrated in the scale drawing here. There is a turning radius. I park there every day. I know exactly how much room you've got. And the parking that is allowed there is actually for the 2 tenants that would be in the short-term vacation rental. My car is in the garage, and the rest of the street parking, that's where everybody else parks for if they're going to the barter. They can park on the street. That's what we have street and city parking lots for. So that's not the intention, is to use it for parking. Okay. So,
Yes.
Go ahead.
My name's Kelly Reed, and I reside at 132 Valley Street, Northwest, and which is also on the same block as the proposed plan. I appreciate everything you are trying to do, but I think we have to get back to the concerns, the basic concerns of the project. And like, Scott mentioned, concerns of safety, concerns of traffic, concerns of our privacy. We're talking about gathering in our backyards. This is literally just 100 feet or 50 feet from some of our yards, and we'll have no privacy at all. The noise level, it will totally change the dynamic of that block. And it's very, very concerning to us who live on that block, who invested in our properties, who maintain our properties, who respect the historic, values of that property. And I'm very, very concerned that this is going to take away the basic reason we all live there. And I think that there are a lot of issues here. The color of the home, the proposed paint color, I know that's nothing compared to a trolley car and a party bus. No matter what's happening there, it's people gathering. But the paint color, to me, it's bold, it doesn't blend in with the neighborhood. I also have trouble with that, and I'm not sure if it's historic. I think on a dormer window, that paint color should be consistent with white. You don't put a blue paint color on a dormer window. It sticks out like a sore thumb. So, and I appreciate you were a designer, but I don't think that looks historic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is an authentic 1933 Craftsman color. It is from the era, and it is a Craftsman color in the historic colors of Sherwin-Williams, and it comes directly off of a paint chart from the 30s when the house was built. So I'm sorry you don't like the color, but it's a shorter, the Craftsman style with the dormer roof is a much shorter house. It's flanked on both sides. First of all, the house does go downhill off the street quite a bit. Secondly, the houses that flank it on each side are much taller, much closer to the street, and much broader facade. And so when I purchased the house, it was completely overgrown in the front with bushes that, I mean, you couldn't even see the house. And so even just as I sit on the front porch playing with my 3-year-old grandchild, people walking by say, oh, the house looks so much better, and all I've done is clean it up so far. We're waiting to get, I've got a paint contractor, we're waiting to paint until we meet with you.
Well, I would like to just start at number one and go work our way through and not get to the paint color exactly yet. I mean,
So yeah, why
yeah.
don't we start addressing this a little bit? So, obviously, we are the Historic Preservation Review Board. So we grant or don't grant a certificate of appropriateness with regard to an eye toward our guidelines. And we don't grant certificates on uses of property or that kind of thing, and we don't address safety issues. We address architecture and historic preservation. And so, and we take that role very seriously. I think, as you see earlier tonight, we are particular about the kind of guttering that goes on a house, because we are protecting the historic district, the look and feel of the historic district, and that is our priority, and that's what we're charged with doing. And so we are charged with making sure that the buildings and structures in the historic district fit in with the other structures and look appropriate and has the proper feel for a historic district. We're very particular about the kind of roof that goes on, the kind of guttering, where asphalt goes, retaining original structures. And with that in mind, there are all sorts of problems with what you have submitted that do not comply with our guidelines. The whole structure that you're proposing to put in front of this house, where a residential structure in the historic district where you would normally just have a yard and some landscaping, is all sorts of hardscape with water features, maybe a fire pit, a mural, benches. This area, if completed in the way that you're proposing, would look nothing like the other open space or fronts of historic residentials and areas in the historic district. It would totally be inconsistent with the rest of the historic district. So that there is a problem, and the same thing in the rear. You know, having, I know technically that your buses would be able to be moved, but they are in essence going to be structures back there. I think you're proposing some plexiglass awnings to them or covers or something. So again, that is going to be completely inconsistent with the look of the rest of the historic district. We try very hard to make changes and additions in the historic district consistent with the rest of the historic district, and that would not be. And that's just to hit really the high points. But let me stop there and see if anyone else has comments or questions they would like to make.
Can I just touch on the zoning side of it before we go much further?
Please.
Would you mind speaking up so I could hear you? I'm having a hard time.
Sure.
hearing.
On the zoning side of it, this board doesn't review zoning. So this is not, so whether or not this is allowed or not allowed isn't this board. So, I mean, these are allowed uses. Short-term rentals are allowed, commercial is allowed. So those are allowed uses.
And I will also add to that, sub-district 1, with our new guidelines and everything, that is the civic and business-focused sub-district.
Sorry, could you say it again?
Sub-district 1, that is the business focused district of the OH.
So it is sitting right next to the barter. I mean, it is, you know, it is in a business district, so that could be completely changed to a business. There's no requirement for it to remain residential.
And there are businesses mixed in with homes all along Main Street.
The point that the neighbors are making is essentially that this is, this particular usage in this particular way, with the size and scale of what is going to happen, is going to be a nuisance to the surrounding properties. And that, what you're saying, that we don't have any purview with that, and essentially they didn't have to get a special permit to do this?
No, so the thing that would have to get a special use permit is outdoor events. So you could not have a wedding back there, you could not have outdoor events. The two trolleys, and again, you all are looking at them as structures, so you could require design standards. You can require bushes, you know, you could require the 8-foot buffer of hedging. You can require all the design things on the site. These two trolleys, regardless of the engines that are there currently, have to have engines and have to be movable. We would not allow those structures to be there permanently without the mobility aspect. If they were there permanently, then they would have to be full structures on permanent foundations, and they would have to comply.
pass our guidelines.
And it would have to, and not just your guideline, I mean, your guidelines do apply here for the design of the trolleys, but if they are not going to be able to be moved and not allowed on the roads, then they're gonna have to have permanent foundations and ingress, egress, all of the building code requirements, so.
And it is not under our purview either as to whether or not, as those trolleys come out of the driveway, they can make the sharp turn onto the alley. That's not ours either.
It would not be your purview. Again, the trolley is kind of there early, I guess, before there's any approval. The trolley is existing there now, but if it was somebody's RV in their backyard, or a trolley, I mean, we don't, you know, we have to make sure the driveways have to be 12 feet wide, and it's kind of how we talked with the other gentleman about how you can't have like the whole back area paved. It does have to be a necked down driveway, but, yes, you know, there's a parking lot right behind here. This is not a residential structure. The barter right next door is not a residential structure, so it is in a business district, just to be very clear on that. So, your requirements for landscaping, screening, you know, you could definitely have something to say about the mural at the front. You can talk about, I mean, this whole front area very specifically is under your purview. But the short-term rental and the other commercial pieces aren't it's not a yes or no from this board tonight, so.
So,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
May I, so is the planning department not concerned about, I know we don't have, there's not a parking requirement in the district, obviously, but about the crowding and the sort of fact that there is gonna be more parking,
Yeah, so
more
as,
people trying to find a place to park if,
Sure.
with this business here.
so one thing that I'm not seeing on her site design is how people get to the rear of the property. Clearly, as she indicated, none of these parking spaces are for any of her commercial ventures. All of her commercial ventures, just like the Summers Building or anything else that you all have approved, will be parking on Main Street. There will be no parking on Plum Alley. This is not, and she's not proposing, public parking inside her parking space, so this isn't really, you know, turnaround and those types of things are for the residents, slash the folks who are using the Airbnb or short-term rentals, so.
So what has come before the planning for this?
I mean, this is the design.
This
that
is the
has-
first that you've seen
Correct,
this
correct,
on any
yes.
board?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to just address a couple things about it then. According to our guidelines, owners of property abutting on Plum Alley are requested to reserve an 8-foot wide landscaping area beginning at the right-of-way of Plum Alley. Clearly on this picture, which Scott indicated, the edge of that trolley comes right up to the alley. That is not 8 feet. So
I've pushed it back.
you've pushed it back 8 feet?
Yes, ma'am, when I had them deliver the first one. I had already checked and understood that the trolleys they are not part of the historic structure, so that's the reason it was delivered when it was. I apologize for that, I didn't know. And everybody I had asked about the trolleys were so excited because the city of Abingdon had sold its trolleys and they thought it was a really cool idea. So I had no idea that there would be an opposition to that because I look at it and think, oh gee, that's fun. People will enjoy that. It's a good attraction. So at any rate,
Well,
but
I
I
don't-
did, when I
I
brought
wasn't
it in,
quite-
I
I
shoved
wasn't
it
quite
back further
finished.
so that there was room. And as far as the entrance area, the primary entrance area is that sidewalk. That's what I use. I'm sorry, you just left.
I'm about to go to the,
That sidewalk is what I pull everything. Obviously, I don't usually park in the front because it's often tied up. But on the front of the all this landscaping stays here, and I left this bed here. So that's not changed really, other than on my drawing, I had it pulled forward. I'll shove the trailers back. You know, I have not seen all of your requirements. I went through and read all the zoning before I purchased the property. I even came and talked to the city before I purchased it to be sure it would be usable for what I was looking at. However, the historic district guidelines, I couldn't find anything on the website that really gave me specific information. So most of this is kind of trial and error, learn what you want from me.
No,
These are
you don't
my
have to
first
learn, I mean,
ideas.
there are written guidelines that you should have got, your realtor should have given you a packet at closing. I think everyone in here that bought in the historic district did receive that, so
A whole packet?
there's an entire packet of all of our regulations.
It's a book.
It's a booklet.
I did not get that, I apologize. And when I looked on the website, I could not find it when I went to the permitting for this meeting or the permit to ask for this meeting. I
It's
didn't
on the
find
website.
anything on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website.
The guidelines are on
The
the website.
guidelines are
I
on the
could not
website.
find it, I'm sorry.
But I wasn't quite finished with what I was saying.
Okay.
You know, there's so many things here that are concerning to me, but with these trolleys, if they need to be a permanent structure, they do not meet our guidelines. We can't have something with those big writing on the sides, I don't think that's
They're-
even,
But they're not permanent structures.
they are permanent structures.
What don't
No,
we,
ma'am,
what do
they're
we?
not, they're
Well, what are you, how,
unbelievable.
well, I guess that's a gray line of how we're defining permanent structures. Do you think you're gonna be driving them around?
Not on a daily basis or a regular basis, but
No.
they certainly can be moved.
Like a
I
truck-
was told
like
they
a tow
needed,
truck.
well, I was told or they could be reconnected. Just because some of the parts were stolen off of them, it doesn't make them undrivable. They were towed here because some of the parts were stolen. but they're trolleys, they were, I mean, they looked like the original trolley, other than, I think your trolley had maybe a back deck area.
I think a trolley is something with electric wires that goes.
No, so that's an electric trolley, this is still a trolley. No, it's, well, anyway.
Okay, why don't we,
They're called that.
tell you what, let's do this in an organized fashion. Let's discuss, let's move through the proposed changes and discuss them in specific areas, and then deal with them by motion, and focus on, of course, our job being the Historic Review Board of, approving these proposed changes in terms of whether they comply with our guidelines or not. So let's take up, first of all, the proposed changes to the front yard of the property. The fire pit and the benches and the paving and all of those aspects. Does anyone have a comment on or question regarding that area?
Well, what kind of mural, we don't allow murals, right?
The mural's at the back, we're not talking about the, oh,
There's
the
a
mural.
mural at the front.
Yes. What is the mural going to be?
Well, I was hoping for something historic and artsy, and I have not defined it yet because I haven't figured out the artist. I'm just saying that it needs personality there. We're across the street from the fountain, across the street from the big love sign. The city, the area, in my opinion, needs some artsiness to it, some creativity. And it felt like it was totally lacking that. So I was proposing a mural. I don't have to do a mural, it can be something else. I just want something very artistic that says, this is a warm and inviting place.
Well, we don't typically allow murals.
Well, there's several in the city.
In the historic district?
Well, they're on the side of a building just a block or a couple of blocks up, I'm sorry.
That's not the historic district.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Well, if you don't want a mural, then we don't do a mural.
But what we're saying is that, and you won't be able, you can have one sign that has to be a certain we're very strict on our signage, so, you just can't
But that
decide you
wouldn't
wanna have a happy
But
piece
that
of
wouldn't
property.
preclude, for instance, hanging an iron cutout on the, as a decorative element on a wooden fence, would it?
Yes.
Yeah, it would.
Really?
I mean,
So if it's trees and mountains and a sculpture, that would not be allowed? You don't allow art,
So,
your building is in the historic district.
right?
And we place a premium and an importance on maintaining the look and integrity of the historic district.
Okay.
And so
I do too.
So things that are inconsistent with that do not comply with our guidelines. So you can drive up and down the historic district and see what it looks like and get the feel of it. And the things that you're proposing are inconsistent with that.
Yeah, just right here, one of our guidelines says regarding yard features, such as pergolas, gazebos, and fountains, if constructed of materials such as glass, metal, or brick, these features may be placed near the rear of the lot if effectively screened by fencing or landscaping. So you can't have a fountain in your front yard, you can't have a metal sculpture in your front yard.
You
these
can
are all
have
part of the
3
guidelines.
nice pots with water overflowing into a little tiny reservoir.
No.
No,
What? There's a fountain directly across the street on the corner.
That's a municipal fountain.
Oh, okay, all right. Then I'll landscape some other way.
It just seems to me that there's an awful lot going on here in this small space. That,
It will be difficult for us to pass what you propose there in the front.
I don't think a fire
Okay,
pit
well
is
then-
appropriate.
Can you get me to a place where I understand how to balance the artistic design of a craftsman house that you want in your community? I just designed a $1 million craftsman house and decked it out, know exactly what it's supposed to look like. So when I purchased this house, I was super excited when I opened the front door, and there it is in this brick bungalow, the perfect craftsman windows over the crafts. So I know what it should look like. My thought is it should also look creative, and it should look engaging, and it should look interesting. Now, that's where I'm headed. So if I can't do that, then I don't understand what you want me to do,
well, I
because
think you should get yourself a copy of the guidelines maybe, and read them.
But I did, but that's,
just said you never
those
saw
are
these.
permanent, what you just described, what you just read is for a permanent concrete or stone type of fountain that is more massive than what I'm talking about, a little water feature. So when I read that, that didn't flag me, or when you said that, that's like, well, that's not exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, you're talking about non-benches, and you're talking about hardscape over the. and
Right,
you're
the
talking
benches
about-
are
you're
because
talk-
of
can-
commu-
can
but
you
why
let-
can't
you-
we have
can-
an-
Can you let me finish?
Okay,
please?
yes, sir.
Thank you. And white gravel paths and a fire pit and a water feature and a mural, all
Uh-huh.
on this little area at the front of this building. Now, can you just imagine what the historic district in Abingdon would look like if that occurred in front of every building in the
Oh,
historic
it would
district?
look so much better than the rows of hedges that I bought.
Well, then,
You know, it was a prison wall. It was like, okay, let's open this up. And I also, the benches are for the purpose of community. It's, again, overflow seating for people when they're going to the barter. It's, morning Bible study, morning walks with people. That's kind of what I wanted. I wanted a place for community. And so that's why I did it like I did. And I don't want to do a whole lot of landscaping that I have to mow or maintain or weed eat, because I don't do that so good.
Well, essentially, as I said, we're going to have a hard time approving what you have.
Okay, then tell me
have
what you would
proposed.
approve and what you
And-
want me to change,
and
and
we
I'll be
can-
happy to do that.
And we won't do that either. We can't really design it for you. I mean, we have
Okay.
our ordinance and we have the guidelines for you to look at, and we'll be glad to look at it again, but we can't really do it for you.
Okay. Then could you please work through the house? I've a painter lined up that's ready to paint it. I really need to get it maintained because the wood is rotting and the paint is peeling.
Okay.
So I need to do that. I need to start on the construction on the downstairs. Get me there.
We have
Charlie
nothing to do
Charlie
with
with
construction
Earthworks is
downstairs.
working on a landscaping plan for me. If this is not what you want, tell me what you want generally. I'll reread the plans and reread the guidelines and see, okay, Charlie, what are you gonna come up with? And we'll submit
Who
landscaping at
did you
another
say?
time.
Sorry, who?
Charlie with Earthworks. And I know that he's done other properties in the historic district on Main Street, because I've walked down and looked at them with him.
okay, why don't we go ahead and address this part right now? Is there a motion on the front of the structure with regard to the proposal?
Front of the structure.
Well, the whole area to the front, or do you want to?
You're talking about the landscape?
Yes, the landscaping, the whole plan with regard to what is the,
I would maybe, maybe in the staff findings, since I've labeled it as front yard or courtyard, let's just say label it as that.
okay, that would be good.
I mean, I think it should be tabled, you're not saying she can't come back with another landscaping proposal.
No.
So, I'm thinking of Bassett and some others that we've dealt with. We haven't, it's not, you don't normally go through a denial and then have her have to wait to come back. You normally would just table it and say, clearly, a water feature, you might have identified that, but you didn't show them what the water feature is that you
I
want.
did. It's on here.
But not clear enough for them to,
Oh,
so.
I illustrated it, and I did put a picture on it.
So there's a lot of, I think if you're
Mhm.
hearing them, there's a lot of clarification that you need
Okay.
for
Mhm.
them to review.
Okay.
And so, from the site plan that you've provided, there would need to be a lot more detail, so.
Yeah.
And I would say fewer materials. You have at least 4 different paving materials here, which to me is excessive in this small area.
All right, thank you, sir.
And I don't think a fire pit would ever be approved just because there's nothing historic about it. And I would be concerned with having benches. If I had a house on Main Street, I have one on Valley Street, but I don't have benches. I'm not encouraging people to sit in my front yard, and that's up to you, but,
I am.
yeah.
That's how we open conversation. That's how we
But
get
you
to
would
know
need to
people.
come back to us, for instance, if you decided you wanted these benches, you would have to bring us the material that the benches you were planning to make them out of. We need to see all the materials.
Well, my plan was to use the trolley benches because they're basically the wood slatted park benches, and I actually have a color board done if anybody wanted to see it, but
I think that's where you need to come back with all of those details, so, yeah, there's a fire pit in front of the Sonder building, so that is.
There
there's-
is?
Mhm. So there's some pieces to this that they need to see more detail is what they're indicating to you.
Then, if
So-
you wouldn't mind tabling the landscaping portion until Charlie gets his work done, because he was checking to see what plants are approved as well as what are, I am a farm girl from Minnesota. I don't know anything about Virginia plants. So I've got to have his input. And so this was my idea of how I wanted the space to function. We'll take your ideas and your guidelines, and I'll get with Charlie, and I'll bring those back to you when he's got that done then.
I think the big conflict that's occurring here is you are focused on making this sort of a fun, party, whimsical, artsy kind of location.
Not party and not necessarily fun, but creative and beautiful would be the words I would use, and classic. I mean, I maintained everything that was on the interior and simply added to it to bring it up to date and make it feel more creative.
But our goal is to preserve the feel and elements and overall atmosphere of the historic district historically as it existed and exists, and to maintain that and to preserve that.
I agree.
And you can see the conflict in those two things.
I don't, but okay.
How can you not?
Because I don't think that preserving things without adding to the creativity of them, or we don't know exactly what that house looked like when it was built or who lived there. So if it's a true
we're pretty
artist.
sure it didn't have trolley benches in the front of it.
It might have had benches though, and it certainly would have some sort of seating. I mean, if a front yard in a community, a walkable community like what Abington is, just invites people to have a place to sit and relax and visit and talk, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's wonderful if they use my front yard. You know, it's a benefit to me. I see a lot of elderly people walking that street, and boy, sometimes they look like they need it. As a matter of fact, I went and helped a man who fell down over on the opposite corner right there by the barter on Main Street, and waited with him for the ambulance and went and got medicine to help bind up his wound while he, you know, there's a lot of older people walking in that area, and I think that they would appreciate it. I know that the nights I've been there when the barter was on, there are people milling around that look like somebody should run a folding chair out there. That's all I was trying to provide.
So do you want to withdraw your proposal and come back later, or do you want us to vote on portions of it? Or?
I want you to vote on portions of it if you would please, so that I don't have to keep stalling on actually getting moving on construction. The painter has 6 other houses lined up, and I'm in a line. I don't want to lose my spot. I would like to get it painted because it's deteriorating as we speak because of its lack of maintenance. You know, and so I would like to work on that. I would like to work on the construction changes that are noted on the plan for the lower level short-term vacation rentals or the retreat spaces I'm doing for the couples retreats. And I would like those things worked on. In the meantime, we can table the rest. We can talk about all the landscaping and everything else if you'll approve the colors and the construction to the outside. I very minimalized changed the outside in order to maintain everything. Very minimalized.
Okay, so why don't we take up the proposed painting then?
What do we decide about the?
Well, we're tabling the landscaping features for
We
now,
are.
is that correct?
I think that's what she indicated she would like.
If that's okay with all of you.
Just table it.
I don't think you normally have voted in the past.
Okay.
It's if you wish to, you can. You know, I know it feels a bit adversarial, but I just want to tell you that this is our normal process. So a project that has this many pieces to it does come before this board in sort of a repeated manner. So
Okay.
this isn't, it's not a one and done. They will continue to listen as you work through this. So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would just say, taking all of the things that they're telling you really to heart as you come back. So
Mhm.
if you hear something that says no trolley benches, we want a more traditional look and feel to the front, then, take that, because
Well-
it is the historic district and not the arts district.
These,
so.
these particular trolley benches are historical looking benches. They're the wood slatted on the iron
Can we just
with
go
the
on
curving.
and
So I can do
drop
a
that for
picture.
now?
I'll do a picture of those and bring them next time, no big deal.
Okay, so should we take up the proposal regarding the paint colors next? All right. Any questions or comments regarding the paint scheme?
Well, you mentioned that that's a color that Sherwin-Williams classifies as arts and crafts, but I think the paint color also has to be compatible with the context of the neighborhood. And I just think this is too intense a color for this application.
Okay, other comments, questions?
I mean, I agree with Peyton. I think that we need to look at the paint color to be a more muted tone, or just white.
Well, I think they're all, it's a spectrum of colors in more sort of, let's say, less aggressive hues. That would be perfectly appropriate on a craftsman house.
And I agree with that also. I think that combination of blue and white, especially on the garage structure, is going to be a very aggressive look and stand out when viewed in the context of the rest of the historic district.
May I approach for a second and show you something? This is the ceiling porch color that I had selected, which is also out of the same family, this right here. May I use the Bungle House Blue, which is the correct historic craftsman color, on these details to make them pop, and then lighten the siding on the back and the garage to this color, which is Billowy Breeze. Can you see that? It's just a lighter tone of the same color, but I noticed as I was going down Valley today that there are several homes that have a bit more of that softer pastel shade in them.
Are you talking about that for the dormer?
I'm talking about this for the front door and dormer and the corbels, because those are the parts that really need, the corbels need that contrast, because they're an interesting architectural element the
Are you
way they're
talking about the
done.
wood brackets that
Yeah,
are supporting the
That
roof?
support the roof, the corbels.
Brackets.
And then this is the, if we did the siding on the rear and the back in this a little bit lighter color, that gives you
I
a
still
much
don't,
softer color.
I still think that blue on the front, on the dormer, is too much color for that part of the street.
Is this too much color?
No, but something,
Okay.
something more.
Can I do the front door this and the corbels this, for instance, and do
What do
all
you,
the
what do you
siding
mean by
this?
corbels?
Right here on the side.
I
Those-
mean the
these
door,
right
the.
here.
Those are
Right here, there's
brackets
brackets.
to me.
Brackets.
Well, it's an interchangeable term.
I'm an architect.
Yeah, okay. Was an interior designer, we call them both. I respect you, thank you. So anyway, the Billowy Breeze would be a lighter tone on the siding, which would be the major portion of it.
I just think you're going down the wrong path with this blue,
Yeah,
even in a lighter value.
I agree.
What,
And I don't like the idea of picking out part of the dormer in one color and part in another.
oh,
It-
I'm talking about doing the lighter color on all siding and the white trim, and only using the Bungle House Blue on the brackets and the front door. Because I've got a lot of white trim on the house, there's a lot of brick. On the front elevation, there's not much siding, it's really only the dormer, period. But again, the house is so far downhill, two monster houses further forward, right beside it, I wanted something that made it just stand out a little bit, because it goes away completely.
If I may, just to clarify, the corbels or brackets are here, the front door's here, and then the arch fascia's right here, so that would be the only blue section that you would see from the front.
Well, no, she mentioned that dormer she was gonna.
And the dormer, I'm sorry, yes.
Well,
Well,
you'd
it's
also
just
see
the
the
dormer.
But the dormer, I said that if you're uncomfortable with that strength of it, then let's lighten it to the porch ceiling color,
So,
which is
again,
billowy breeze.
as staff, one of the things that we would ask for you to do is, since you proposed with one color, if you are now wanting to do a lighter color, since that's what you're hearing from them, that would be another situation where they would need to table it. And I would suggest that you come back with those colors actually applied, in a program on this actual image. So it's kind of,
But
it's
if
just
I
that.
do that, I will be 30 days out again, will I not?
Correct.
Which, again, I will lose my line completely with the painter. And I can run copies of this page if you want. I can email you, I can redo the program and email you, just like I did on the drawing that I provided for you. I went into Sherwin-Williams and painted it on there in a computer program. I can change it that way and email it to you, but I really hate to lose my place in line given the spring weather and the lineup and how hard it is. Clearly you have a booming community because you cannot find contractors here.
We do have a booming community because we've been very proactive about protecting the historic district and
Mhm.
making it a very nice place for people to live and have their
Right.
businesses, and that's what we feel passionate about.
Mhm.
And so, our goal is to preserve the look and feel of the historic district. And again, you're trying to make your building stand out and be more visible with the two buildings beside of it. That again is not what we're about.
I understand. Is the billowy breeze then a color if I use the darkest color that I was proposing only on the accents? That's what I'm asking you to approve it. And I understand what you're saying, but I've got those colors right here. I just showed you that color.
Well, I feel that both shades of the blue are too aggressive and not consistent with the overall look of the building. And I think that using the color in different places to sort of highlight features of the trim is inconsistent with, our goal of preserving the look and feel of historic structures to keep them more in tune of what.
Are you
they were
asking me to
doing.
go back with flat white everywhere, just white?
No.
No.
Then
There's a world of different, there's all sorts of other things you could do. What I'm saying is I think that the blue is too aggressive, and using it in places in the way you're proposing is not an appropriate look for the structure.
We're going to have here again, you're going to have a hard time getting this color scheme passed.
I'm sorry, I can't
I
hear
think
you.
you're going to have a hard time getting this color scheme passed.
Okay, again, if there's a color scheme that, how much lighter do you want it? How much different do you want it? Because am I back to just whites is what I'm asking. You're shaking your head no, but this tone of billowy breeze is clearly a mid-tone, not a dark color. It is not uncommon in all historic structures for the front door or the accents to be a stronger color. That is a very common design scheme and element. So I just want to know before I bring back, if I wait another 30 days, I don't want to bring back another proposal that is, and then miss the painter and have another, that would be 60 days at least of further deterioration on a building that needs attention now.
Well, we're happy to meet,
I understand
we're
that.
happy to meet, have special meetings. We do that all the time. I think we probably had 20 or so special meetings last year. So we can have another meeting. You don't have to wait until
Okay.
our April meeting.
Thank
So
you.
we can do that, but,
And you could bring, at that meeting, you could bring several choices
Okay.
that would work for you.
Could you just repeat again how you were proposing to
I was
use the
saying-
lighter color, the blue?
I was saying on all siding, and there's, on the back side in the garage is obviously all siding.
This is just
On the, it's really only the front side has, because the addition on the back side was done, I think, somewhere in the 80s, early 80s or something like that. So the front side is the only one that's got the brick and the dormer only. So my thought is to use all of the siding in the lighter color, and then do just the front door and the brackets, because they're the stair-stepped brackets that come out Craftsman style, so that the first one is deeper, they taper back like this, and I'd like those architectural elements to stand out a little bit. It has an open soffit, and the rafter boards and the fascia would all be white. The front door, I would like the dark if possible, just to make it's recessed under the porch, and that arch piece also disappears, and it would be really nice if that small piece of arch fascia could be that. So those are the three areas that are more important to me, color-wise. The rest of the siding, I can lighten it, I can go to billowy breeze, or I can go to 50% of billowy breeze. I just wanted a color that felt warm and somewhere between the sky and the earth and the grass. And I didn't want it too green. And I was working off the historic color charts.
So the majority of the trim would be white,
The trim would all be white.
all be white.
Only the siding would be the mid-tone color, and only the front door brackets and arch piece fit that one piece of the front porch.
This right here.
Well, I like Betsy's idea of coming back with a few choices that we could look at, because I don't think that we're meeting anywhere, we're nowhere close to what you want, and you're not close to what we prefer, so I think maybe we need to look at some options. And we can meet again in 2 weeks or so, I think, typically.
Well, given the brick, we know it has to be a blue or a green tone, because any other color would not complement that brick correctly. So I will bring you back then some chips. I'll call my Sherwin-Williams rep and ask her to send me out the bigger chips for you.
I've
What are the colors on the Valley Street house?
Yeah.
Can you go
That's
to
a
Valley
Craftsman's
Yeah.
house that has the landscaping.
Susan Kimbrell's house? Is that
Yes,
Do you know
the
what the,
Kimbrell
do you know
house.
what the address is, buddy?
It's
It's,
near Court Street.
Yeah.
It's
right behind my house.
that,
Like, try like in the twos.
is it Tanner Alley? No, it's,
Which house?
it's right behind the
Susan
cave
Kimbrell-
house.
Susan Gary's house. Next to the labyrinth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna also suggest not just chips, but
Yeah.
like your small image down here, it's just very difficult for them to see, so I
Down-
think based
down
on
the valley,
what
yeah.
we're hearing, you
Oh,
would
down
wanna
the
do
valley, you
something
said?
like this in a larger format.
Sure.
So they can see
And,
clearly.
and
I
you
was-
mentioned getting larger chips, because you know how hard
I
it is
understand.
to
Yes,
pick
sir.
from
Yeah,
that.
you're almost there.
Yes, sir, I do.
Keep
Yeah, I
going.
usually get the 8.5 by 11
Or
when
if you
I'm
can buy those
working with a
little
client.
Right.
Oh, that,
jars that they
There.
used to sell, and you could paint a
Mm-hmm,
bigger piece.
sure.
I mean, that
You've
would,
got
Be glad to.
gray
There.
maroon.
See this house?
Can you
That
scroll
house
up a little
used to-
bit more?
it used to be
That's
gold.
shingled on the dormer, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, this is the new color.
This is the new.
The old color was gold and,
They just painted this.
But it's more colorful than that. That's kind of backlit.
You can ride down the street there and look at it.
yeah. they
I-
did a nice
across
job.
the street too.
Is that a mid-tone slate gray, blue?
I think
Or
gray
steel
blue
gray?
is the operative word that
This is
I'm
also
Right.
blue
thinking
that's seen.
of, not so blue, but softened or modified enough to
Okay,
to
like a
sort of-
smoky blue, a soft
yeah,
smoky blue?
something like
Right.
that.
Kinda like,
Can you go
Because
back
there
to
are
the,
examples of that in the
back
See,
district.
across the
that-
street
That's
again?
fairly close to the
But
depth.
she
Yeah.
does
That
have,
house.
she does have the whole brick color to deal with.
Is
Yeah.
that brick painted there?
Yes.
That is.
That was already painted though, we didn't, that was a,
But Buddington's is a deeper blue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a kind of a gray and a blue, is that right? Is that what
It's
it is?
gray, it's really
Oh,
more of
can
a
you
gray.
turn
Is
across
it taupe?
the street, Gabe?
it's more of a gray.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
More of a colonial blue.
I think that one has a similar depth of color.
not as deep as your bungalow, whatever it is.
Bungalow house?
Bungalow house?
I would also just maybe recommend in just saying, this is a different style of house, and throughout the OH district, there is certain aspects where there is an 1800s house right next to a 1930s house. And when they're evaluating significance, they're evaluating that house based on that period, not the streetscape. So when you're looking at paint and everything for this, I wouldn't be trying to compare it to an 1800s style. I'd be looking for craftsman style paint. So even though this might not match the streetscape of it, it meets the house.
Well, the house was built in 1938.
And craftsman style were more of an eclectic kind of style back in the 1930s, so that's where a lot of the colors are more, I guess, deep to say extravagant in a way.
I still think context is important.
No, yeah, not saying that is, but I'm just saying when they look at significance for a house, they look at it individually.
And the other
not,
thing
you
that I
know.
think in historic preservation practice is that paint is not permanent.
Mhm.
And unless it's something that sort of really goes outside of the normal constraints that we would like to see, we don't even prescribe color. We
Paint
don't
is just
prescribe
paint.
color. And it can always be changed, but that's not the same as saying that a particular choice is gonna not be the best one.
So is your plan gonna be to come back in the middle of the month with some options for us? Is that what you'd like to do?
Yes, sir, the sooner the better. I just need to know what I'm supposed to do. Obviously, it's tying up a lot of finances to sit and wait on decisions. You know, may I start construction? May I put the doors in? May I do something is what I'm looking at, so that I do not delay the income producing value of a commercial piece of property I bought specifically for its mixed use purposes.
Well, this is the first time you've been before us.
Yeah, but we
Yes.
don't feel like we're holding you up.
No, I know, but a
And
delay.
we have guidelines that your
Yeah.
application should meet, and so we can't act on your application until it's consistent with our guidelines. But we will.
But we
but
can
we-
act on certain elements of it, right?
Well,
We
that's
could
what
put in
we're
the
doing.
doors
If
and the
we can-
windows, we
We're going
could.
down through this.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're gonna table the paint
Yes,
till
sir.
later. So
I
what else
understand.
would you like us to take up
The
tonight?
next thing is the frame rear addition, according to the packet, the way the packet's put together.
Is the what?
The, the frame rear addition. I don't know what,
And,
It's
uh,
just the deck.
well, she
No.
wants to she doesn't want to tear it off, she just wants to paint it, is that right?
I was going to rebuild it. It needs rebuilding.
Oh, you want her to take it
needs,
all. Oh,
it needs to
okay.
be I need some additional framing. The posts at the bottom are rotten. I'm going to put in some new piers, put in some new posts, level up the deck, and put on new deck board and railing because they're rotten.
Which is
What
pretty
about-
much replacing the whole thing.
replacing-
Everything except the framing, yeah.
What about the addition? Do you say that?
There's not, the addition, it already is an addition.
So
It's
you're
been
not- you're
existing
not
since the
taking that
eighties. I'm
addition?
not doing
Oh,
anything with
okay.
it except changing.
Painting.
I wanna add 2 doors.
Uh-huh.
And they're marked on the plan. There's one existing door right now. I want to make 2 more doors. And then I want to do, I want to take the basement windows that are short and change them to taller windows. There's really no reason for them to be as short as they are, because they're the old basement windows, but they're above ground, so it's silly.
So are your doors that you're gonna add 2 doors to that deck, is that what you're saying?
No, not to the deck, to the actual lower level
Okay.
of the walls.
And that is these?
So
Yeah,
if,
it's
so,
right up here.
so if you see here, this is where the existing door is, and it's not a
Wait minute, I
crap,
don't see your arrow.
right here.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we've
That
got
is-
it here in our
yeah.
packet.
Page 15.
And
Page
that is a
15 great.
6-panel door. It's not typically a craftsman style. Sometimes it's
But I was
used,
changing
sometimes
to
it
a-
isn't.
I was going to change it to a
Mm.
craftsman.
This is what the style of the craftsman style door that she is proposing to
Okay.
be. What she
Okay.
said would be fiberglass. If you want to make it wood, you can ask for wood.
Yeah.
This is where, on this side, is where it would be cut into the addition.
Which is a
It-
framed.
It's
A
all,
framed
yep,
addition.
it's a frame addition that went in later, so it's existing, and the porch would not be moved from its location in a sense, but it would be reconstructed, and upon my site visit, I mean, it is heavily deteriorated. The posts are pretty deteriorated at the ground level.
And there's no exterior, there's no stairs going
No.
for that.
There are no stairs. There is a door from the upstairs onto that deck.
So do we allow fiberglass doors?
I think we have.
You have before in the past, but wood is usually typically
Is
asked
wood.
for.
But they're paint grade, and they're going to be painted, and fiberglass will hold the paint significantly longer and better. And they are smooth panel doors, which would be the same as
And they are
getting
going-
wood and painting them.
And they are going in a modern edition, so,
And they are going in the rear.
in the rear.
And as we discussed in a recent meeting, it's as much about appearance as it is the materials
Yeah.
Or just
Right.
being able to get.
on new construction.
And are you gonna rebuild, are you gonna rebuild the deck just like it is now? I mean, is it gonna look the same, just rebuilt, or are you
Well, I
gonna?
was going to paint it, stain it or paint it a white, just to lighten it up and not make it look so
Yeah.
heavy.
But if,
I took down, there was a tree growing through it that had been designed around it, and that tree was dangerous. And when I bought the house, there was a sign on my upstairs, what is my bedroom door that goes out on the deck that said, "Do not walk on deck," so, so it does have to be rebuilt.
so we can take up and the windows, those are modern windows, so you're wanting to put new windows that are a little bit larger in?
Yeah, just taller. There's a steel lintel there already, and I was just going to take out the AC units, the outdoor AC, the hangout AC units, and replace those with taller windows. It'll improve significantly the look, believe me.
Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding those proposed changes?
I would just suggest that I don't know how long ago that deck was built, but just make sure that the new guardrail is in its
42.
current code.
Yes, and 4-inch spacing, yes, sir, I know.
I think it's 36 inches on well, it's not residential though, so, 42.
I would do 42s anyway,
Yeah.
just for safety reason, and the 4-inch sphere test too. Yes, sir.
Okay, are we ready for a motion with regard to
Mhm.
those components? Okay.
Looking to me. All right, I will make a motion that we approve the doors as presented, the doors on the west and on the east of the addition, the windows as presented, the rebuilding of the deck as presented to look just like this deck but painted white.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Aye.
Mrs. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Geisler.
Aye. All right, and are there other aspects you'd like us to take up tonight?
No, sir, the painting would be the next thing that's gotta get done that pertains to the exterior of the building.
What
And
about
then-
these garage doors?
What about what?
The garage doors?
Oh, you could do that later or now, I don't care. I was just taking, one of the garage doors somebody had run into before I got the house. And so I was going to flip the garage doors and change that other garage door to a triple arts and crafts door, just a walk-in door. I didn't want a garage door there. I was gonna split off half the garage. And so my thinking was just to make it match to the house a little bit more by using 2 fixed doors as side lights and a center door, all matching. That way it looks consistent and makes it feel a little bit more residential, a little bit more like the cottages that line Plum Alley.
So are we gonna wait for you to request when you wanna come back?
Well, if you want to do that part now, that's all the construction. And then we're down to landscaping and paint color. Now, landscaping, I wouldn't have ready for you as quickly as I can paint color. I can get that done sooner. Landscaping, I gotta wait on Charlie and, kind of figure out what the building materials are available locally. That's the other thing I'm running into, as I'm trying to figure out what is available locally. I know what's available in Dallas and Fort Worth. I don't know what's available here.
And the other thing we'll have to take up, the structural features in the back and the trolleys.
What structural features?
I think there's a fire pit and,
There was like a big.
If it's a portable fire pit, do you have, I mean, if it's, that's just a portable fire pit, is that something that needs to be approved?
I don't think it does.
But we'd have to talk about that sign, that screen, because that's.
The screen, oh, well, that's just a folding screen, it's a 3-panel screen.
Well, we still have to discuss it.
Oh, okay.
Where was it?
I was just, it doesn't matter, the door is around the corner, I was just creating a private alcove for somebody that was
Where does
staying
it
there,
go?
thinking it would be nice to have a little private place to sit.
And the way that our code reads, it's just anything seen from a public right of way. So if you
And,
can
and
see
Plum
that
Alley is a
screen-
public right of way then?
Correct,
Mhm.
correct.
Mhm. Okay.
so, I guess we should have some discussion on those aspects. So with the, I guess the consensus is that if it's a portable fire pit, then we don't regulate that.
Right, but it's a portable fire pit, but it's surrounded by benches. Are the benches,
They're probably
Chairs.
Just
they're just.
Lawn
just
chairs.
Chairs
Thing.
unattached to the floor.
That's just a backyard.
So
lawn
again,
chair
we
thing.
wouldn't.
It's,
No.
it was
control
hard
that.
to see.
it's like a swing set. It's
And then
just a
what
piece
about
of
these
yard
awnings?
furniture.
Anything related to the trolley, she has to come back
That
to you.
awning is just on the trolley, that wasn't on any of the doors?
Correct.
No, actually, I would like an awning over that other door, the one other door I'm adding, but it's not a big deal.
Well, you would have to come back to us with the size and the materials and everything.
Yeah, it was on the plans, but
That's
if
right.
you
I
don't
had
like that,
seen that.
if you don't like that material, I just thought that material looked right architecturally.
I was trying to find.
The
It
material,
was
right,
disappeared.
it's in the picture right here, it's a plexiglass and then it has a metal frame.
And that you want over one of the doors that's on the house.
This would go over this one, and then there is already an existing metal awning right here, which,
And I can do the metal awning that's on the other side over that door if you want. I just want to protect the door and a guest. I don't want them to stand there in the rain trying to figure out how to operate a numerical keypad. You know, I wanted them to be covered, that's all.
I thought the plexiglass one was for the trolleys.
No, I think it's.
it's for, that type of awning's for everyone, so. the-
Unless that's not what you want.
Mhm.
If you want to match the awning. It's a 1980s awning on the right side. It's kind of a metal,
It's a metal kind of.
The
almost
slatted
cor-
metal?
Slatted corrugated metal in a way, that's kind of the best way I could describe it, but it is atypical for that kind of addition, so if you wanted to, in your motion, you could say to mirror the existing awning on the existing door over to the other side, if that is what you would wish. And that is a metal, and that is atypical of
I
what
would
you
think
see.
on the house, that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, you could just approve it for the house if she wanted to work just mainly in the house, and then she would come back for the trolley details.
well, if the trolley had a crank-out awning, then it wouldn't matter because it's attached to the trolley, right? I don't-
They would still have to review the awning since it's part of it, even if it's a crank out, since there are
Okay.
some in the historic district that have crank out ones, it's just still part of it, so they have to imagine if it's out.
So right now, we're addressing the awning for the house, is that right?
This-
Yes.
Mhm.
And so, Peyton's observation was that the fiberglass awning would be inappropriate for the structure. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's not, it's those are plexiglass. I
Do
think.
you have the measurements of that? I mean, I can't read that little tiny.
So
It's gonna
would,
look like this.
Well, to go over a front door, it needs to be about 4 foot wide. The door's 3 foot.
So we're just talking about more or less matching the one that's on the
That's fine.
west side.
If I can find somebody to produce it. But Jerry's Sign and Awnings is doing the trolley wrap for me. So, and I think they do awnings as well. So I could check with them.
So do you want us to vote on the awning replicating the one that's there?
That'd be great. And if you wanted to vote on the doors to the garage, that's fine too. That would get construction out of the way.
Okay, are we ready for a motion on that?
Like I said.
So I mean, we approve an awning for the east side of the frame rear addition that matches the existing one on the west side.
And what about the garage doors?
And that we approve the garage doors as
As
submitted.
presented.
Can we make a comment before you all vote on it?
Sure.
When I was here
Oh,
before,
excuse me, could you come up and please talk into the mic, please?
I really wasn't gonna say anything, but I
Yeah,
do
you
have
are.
a question, because, when I was building my house, you know, I've come up here several times, and, before you all voted for anything, I had to have samples of what the windows look like if you're changing the look of the house. I had to have, she's gonna change a garage, and she's gonna take out one door and add it, and change the whole look of it, don't she have to have samples of what the garage door's like, what the windows she's gonna put in the house is like, what the rails on the deck's gonna be like? I had to do every bit of that. And you all letting her slide and letting her do this stuff because you want her, because she's telling you all how that she wants it done, and you're agreeing. I mean, it's not fair for someone else like me that had to go for everything, shingles, windows, even when I build a new place, if you change that facade and you change the look of them, you're supposed to get the window sizes approved, what she's got. I was never allowed to have a fiberglass door. I wasn't having to have rails. You wanted to know what kind of rail I had on the deck. You wanted to know you wanted the blueprint of how it was gonna be. I don't care if she's not just she's not fixing it, she's replacing that deck. So you all need to know what size it's gonna be, what kind of wood she's gonna use, what's the rails gonna be like, is she gonna put vinyl?
Well,
I'm just saying.
Well, so what we approved was an exact replication of what's there now. So if she doesn't do that, then we'll issue a stop
Well,
work
how
order.
you gonna know that?
Because they're going to
This
look.
gentleman
That's
here.
what we do.
Okay,
That's
okay.
the same thing we did.
All I'm saying
That's
is,
what we
I
did.
don't care what you all agree to, I don't mind what she's trying to do. I'm just saying, just make sure it's fair of what everybody else in the area has had to do. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
That's a good point.
And she has submitted, the specific garage doors and those
Yeah.
details. We have
Yeah,
that.
but she's not just doing another door back, she's changing the look of the garage. Is that gonna be like in the area that it's supposed to be? I mean, if you're gonna take 2 doors out, aren't you supposed to put 2 doors back? She's not doing that, she's changing them and changing another door there. And you're taking smaller windows in a basement, I don't care if it's underground or not. She's taking a small window and putting a large window. Does that still go with the look of the era of the house in 1930s?
Well, the addition is 80s or
Mhm.
something, it's not 30s.
Mm.
And
And
it
it
has
is-
no real architectural,
The bottom
Value.
level is the 80s?
On the back.
Yes.
Yes.
And it is on the rear.
And it's the rear, and
It's
it's
the
an
rear.
80s edition, and
Yeah.
you were building a brand-new structure right on
The
I
corner.
main,
understand, and I'm not trying to question y'all, I just want some clarification.
No, that's a good point.
Because we were all asking the same questions, do you not have to have samples of all this stuff before it's approved? I don't care if it's a new window or a little bitty window, don't you supposed to have, if it's vinyl, or like I had to have wood clad, you're supposed to have samples of that? I mean, I did, even if it's a new construction or a remodel, don't you supposed to have those things?
Well, she did, she did specify what type of window she was going to put, and.
I had to have a picture from Lowe's or wherever I got it, telling you exactly what the material was.
And
And then even I had to have paint samples, and they're approving these colors that no one's actually seen yet.
we're
didn't
not
approve
approving.
We're
any
not
color.
approving the paint colors.
And again, this
Don't
is,
think I'm a bad person, I'm just asking questions.
these are
that's
windows
wrong.
on a 1980s edition in the backyard of a structure.
Right.
You were building a brand-new structure right on, facing the street. And we were talking about the main visible part of the structure, and we are requiring that she do the porch back the way it is, so it's not like we're just saying, you were doing a brand-new
You know how it's
porch.
confusing to us when we're thinking, well, you're gonna put this back the way it was. I didn't realize that he would be going looking at it.
Mhm.
And I
Oh, no,
thought, well,
he's-
don't you have to have some of those
He
spindles
will.
to look at like I have to have?
Right.
You're gonna put a fence back there, don't you have a sample of that? So
Mhm.
I'm glad that you're clarifying the fact that it's a pre-existing thing. Is it different than a new construction?
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
if you're building, excuse me,
Sure.
if you're building back like for like, as far as the appearance, that's what we're doing here. And if it if it's not done that way,
Then
then
that's Gabe's job. to-
Gabe
I'm
will
just
shut
confused
it
because
down.
I think when I came in, y'all told me one time what I had to have, and then I had to bring those things back in to show you. And then you all said yes or no, right?
We
And
said
so,
yes.
and then I had to have a definite, I had to pay an architect to do all that stuff. And then, I mean, if we're trying to keep it historical, I mean, don't let things slide if you, I don't think you will, but I'm just saying. So, thank you for listening.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mhm.
So, where were we? So,
We had a motion.
It's almost 8 o'clock.
yeah,
Did you have a motion? Who had made the motion?
I made the
Pay-
motion.
Payne made the motion for the doors to be approved on the addition, and then the door also for the garage to be as presented.
And the,
And the awnings
The awning.
to match, the awning on the west side to match that, to be put on the east side.
okay, is it,
For
was
the
there a
addition.
second?
not yet.
Is there
No.
a second? Second.
Do you want to separate the motions out? I think originally it was just the awning to be replicated on the other side.
Okay, why don't we just do that then?
Okay.
Can we just do a motion on just the awning? Okay, so the motion is just on approving the awning to be replicated up from the existing awning. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Aye.
Mrs. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Geisler.
Aye. Okay, so on the garage doors then, are you, so you're only replacing one of the existing garage doors or both?
Only one.
And what's gonna happen on the other one?
I'm taking the one that's not damaged and moving it over there, so it's identical. All I was doing is moving it over to replace the piece that's damaged. Whether, it probably just has to switch panels. You know how they pull apart a garage door and put in a new panel? Well, there's a panel on the left. The garage door on the
It's coming.
left-hand side that I want to keep as a garage door currently has prior damage. All I'm doing is replacing the panel on that. So it's just repairing it. The other garage door, I would like to take a garage door off, leave the exact same cased opening, and change it to two fixed and center operational Craftsman doors.
So if you guys look up at the big screen here, these doors, which are match what you guys would be going on the addition as well, except they would just be with 3, would go right here to this door.
Correct,
This door would stay the same.
correct.
Windows would stay the same, everything staying the same with this garage structure. It's just the doors would be changing, or one door would be changing, I should say.
Okay, so that's, so
I
then you're gonna end up with,
misunderstood that.
yeah, I'd misunderstood, you're gonna end up with a garage with 2 different types of doors in the 2 garage openings,
like
which
that.
is not going to
It's not,
be, historically accurate.
yeah, I was confused. I
That's-
thought she was replacing that door and not the double door.
Right.
No, just the one on
Yeah,
the
I
right
think-
was what I was
I think
saying.
we were confused by that.
I think that's.
I mean, if you wanted to replace your garage doors with garage doors on both garage openings, that was something that's consistent or with the same thing there, that would not be a problem, but changing a garage opening and putting 3 doors into that is not going to be,
It's pretty common in a cottage setting though, and this isn't an original historic structure. Again, this is an 80s building. I don't know, I know that when I drive down Plum Alley, there are a number of little garden sheds, garages that have been converted to small housing or cottages. So if that's not an option, then it's not an option, but I like, for my purposes, it would work better to have one garage door and an operational swing door. I don't need 2 cars. I need the space, rather.
so does anyone wanna comment on that further, or?
Is there any other example of that, what she's talking about, anywhere that you can think of?
So go down, Gabe, to some of these other cottages, no, like towards
other way,
church, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one there, and then, I can't, well, you'd have to look at the, a little further.
Go a little further down.
So, well, no, you're
No,
fine. That's
that's
got
one,
one,
yeah.
it's got a garage door on one side and then like a front door on the other side. Can you scoot just over so we can see the other, okay, I'll turn back towards it. So that's, I think that's what you're saying. It's got a garage door on one side and then like on this side, it's got a door.
No, that's not what she's saying.
But it doesn't have.
No,
a
I'm
door.
saying, she's
Yeah.
just replacing, so one of hers she
She's
wants is a
replacing-
garage door, and then the other opening, she wants it to be an in-out, so that it's not a full double garage anymore.
I wanna do the door this way, I wanna do it this way. I wanna walk into it that way.
Now, if you all want her to bring back a design to
Yeah, I
see what
think-
that looks like, that is something that I think that
I
could be
think we need to
clarified.
look at it and look at the materials again and make sure.
Well, I
that-
have the materials on the drawing, but.
So
Yeah,
you,
but that, when you have them on the drawing, that doesn't really tell us what they look like in person.
but see,
We-
and you,
Like, we have people bring in boards with bricks on them and stuff, so we can actually.
and you do already have a single door entrance
Yeah,
into
you-
your garage, so I'm not understanding.
Right, it's on the other side. I wanted to separate off, if you look at the floor plan, I've drawn a center wall. We've traveled a good deal, and part of our travels always included the old-time photography shops, and I just thought something like that would add a good value to the city and be kind of fun to have a place that people could take the photos that might be, I was thinking in terms of theater, because with the barter right there, it'd be fun to do glam type of photos, 1930s, Chase Lounge kind of fun stuff, or it would be fun to do an Art Deco, Art Nouveau flavor, or just old-time photography of historic, your big Revolutionary War area. So things like that is what I had in mind. I'm not a photographer. I was hoping that I would find someone. It was, again, just a matter of providing another venue for the city that would be kind of tourist-related and attract people to the community.
So you're taking it from a two-car garage to a one-car garage with an extra space, so I think that, I see you have a blueprint, but perhaps this small structure where you have the blue on it, if you could show what that would look like, with the doors put into the actual image.
Gotcha. All right, I will attempt that.
Okay, so that'll be.
I'm good
tabled
at
then.
chief architect, I'm good at 2020 and Kitchen Plus, but not so much on some of those programs. I'll do what I can.
And I think that's what Vicky was saying, is that she came before us 4 or 5 times, so she has a lot of experience, and yes, I mean, we required her to show us a new image,
Mhm.
so that's just part of this process.
Sure.
And are we tabling, taking up the trolleys?
We had
Yes.
a comment from the public.
I have a comment on the garage doors. Right now, they.
Could you come up? I'm sorry, but.
My name is Sheila Madison, and I was just concerned, right now they have matching garage door openings. And would there be an attempt to completely go away from that as being matching? I think that just, it looking like one type style garage door for one, and which, using those 3 doors, looks like a Craftsman style garage door opening. Then you've got the solid one, it's a garage door opening with a, 1980s, 1950s, or whatever style garage. I think matching is what we need here, whatever it is. If you wanna go to, Craftsman style on both, that's fine, but just leave it as the matching.
And I think one thing that makes that more of a problem is the fact that those
Right, you've got
corners have that sort of
Right.
You've got the,
little
Angles on
clipped
So
corners.
then you
Right,
lose your
thank you.
consistency.
Okay, so is there,
I mean, I just wanted to just add one more thing.
sure.
In the guidelines as well, it just says that existing outbuildings located adjacent and near to Plum Alley are expected to be retained and preserved as historic structures in accordance with preservation ordinance. So that does it does refer back to changing out the garage doors into two different ways, I think, if that's how I can read that. So I think that is something we need to look at.
Okay, so we're gonna consider that later then.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we can take up tonight?
Well, one other thing that was in this packet, or in her application, where she had just written signs, yes, but then nothing more detailed with that. I mean, we can't,
I'm waiting on Jerry's signs to do that information for me, and they were checking your guidelines to verify what they could do.
I
So
don't
they're
think
in
we-
the process of, so that would have to come at a different
I
time.
don't think we've taken up signs.
Right.
well, no, I just was saying, it says yes on this form. I just wanna make sure that we
Yeah.
know that that isn't
Yeah.
on here, that we, and then also lighting, it just says yes. So, is there gonna be any change in lighting?
It needs an additional light on, if you scale back, I can show you here.
Yeah.
It really needs some additional lighting, pull down this way. It needs additional corner lighting. There is a light right here. Let me see where I'm at. Here's the front porch. There's a light right here on this corner. The problem is, it's a motion detector light, it's really high. And when I get out of my car in the evening, I have no light back here at all. There is a post light over here, an old post light that, when I fix the bulb and fix it and figure out where the switch is at, we'd be able to use, but it's not, it's way over here by the garage, and there's not any lighting here. It really needs a motion light or pathway lights here, and just for safety reasons.
Well,
And that is all a brick, an existing brick sidewalk that tapers downhill, and so it gets a little mossy and can be a little slippery, so at night, I really do want some additional lighting on that particular side of the house for sure.
okay, so you just can't say lighting though. You need to bring us the exact lights that you plan to use.
That's fine.
So we'll cover that at the next time.
So, is there anything else that we need to take up tonight?
That covers
We did not improve the screen.
Fine. It's just interesting sculpture.
Okay, so are we ready to move on then?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, next is reorganization of the board. We need to appoint a chairman and a vice chairman. So we will open the floor for nominations.
Nominate Betsy White for chair.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any others?
Sorry.
So I guess we can go ahead and vote on that. Roll call?
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Aye.
Mrs. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Geisler.
Aye. And now we need to appoint a vice chair.
I
So-
nominate Mrs. Hartshorn.
All right, is there a second?
I second that.
Any other nominations?
You said okay.
I know.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Aye.
Mrs. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Geisler.
Aye.
All right, that was fast.
And I see that our new member, Brooke Bunn, is here tonight, so welcome to the board. We'll,
Are you still sure you want to be on here?
so, we're excited to have you.
I'd also like to thank Byron for his many years of
Yes.
service and his valuable input at each and every
Absolutely.
meeting.
Here, here.
Thank you
See
very
you
much.
back in 3 years.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much. I have thoroughly enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and obviously,
Done a great job.
well, thank you. All right, any other business not on the agenda?
Did you all wanna pick another date? Are we still trying to pick a mid-month date? Cause I know we've been trying to gear back towards just the monthly because we have a new member on our HPRB who can't probably pop over
My
as frequently.
thing is, like, I adjust monthly for my meetings.
Can't we
and-
have it at your place of
I
business?
hear you, yes, ma'am, come on up. But work starts for me at like 1:30, so, I mean, but, I apologize
It
for
will do
that.
this just this one time.
So, we're setting a mid-March meeting, is that right?
If you all would like to, just.
So what's the,
There's a 15th and then there is the 22nd, and then there's actually a 29th. You all won't meet again till the 5th of April, but, I mean, so 15th, 22nd, or the 29th would all work.
The 29th will not work, I mean, the 22nd will not work for me.
Okay.
The
15th
29th will not work for me.
Would
How
the
about the
15th work for
15th?
everybody?
Can you come on the 15th?
I won't.
Okay, I'll get to you.
Yeah, I can do the 15th.
How are the terms set up? I mean, this is 1st of March, is that when the switchover occurs, or?
No, it's,
It's based on how long you've been on, so it's, you know, the 3-year term. So with Byram, for example, he didn't start until April of his term, so he will go through, so he would probably be at the next meeting, and then he would take over in April. So, and then we are, the whole transition, I mean, you all asked us to put in a motion to do a zone text amendment. That is going through, so it's just in the process. And it did indicate that if no one applied within 30 days, that the extension of the existing, so regardless, and in no means do we not want you on the board, we're just, we really enjoyed Byram, so we've put in a motion that says if no one applies within 30 days, or isn't chosen, that a person could retain their seat, for another follow-up term. So that will go in front of Planning Commission and Town Council in this next month, so.
So, the earliest that Mrs. Sorensen could come back would be
the 15th.
the 15th then, it's 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, I have to be out of town that week.
Oh, okay. So, do we want to try the next Wednesday?
Well, Betsy can't come to that.
No, you mean
22nd?
next from now?
The 22nd?
No.
Or the next from now?
The 8th.
Oh, that's actually not enough time for us to put
Yeah,
together.
they have to put it together and
Noticing and,
notice
yeah.
it.
So,
When are you gonna be out of town, Ms. White?
I just have I have a function right at this exact same time that I have to be at,
Yeah.
which I have to be.
That's the
ma'am.
22nd? Can we do it on the 21st or 23rd?
I can't do it on the 23rd, but I can do it on the 21st.
That would be Tuesday.
Or I can give everything to Gabriel if you just want me to just hand it over to him.
Well, we'd
Yeah,
have to
they
have a
need
meeting.
us.
Yeah,
They need
I
us.
think it'd be best that you come, yes, ma'am.
is that whole week bad for you, around the 15th?
Yes, sir. I've gotta go back to Texas for a week.
Um,
I've got a new great grandbaby needs to be seen.
The 21st, you want to try that? Tuesday, the 21st at 5, what time do you want to do, 5:30? Can everyone do that?
Hold on,
Okay, let's do that then.
hold on.
Um,
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll have a special called meeting then on March 21st at 5:30.
If it's an inconvenience to all of you, I mean, it's been 3 years since, I think, Barry passed away, or Mr. Proctor passed away, so if it needs to wait until April, I can do that now that I've got some forward motion, that's what I needed. So if you want me to wait, I'll be happy to wait and not inconvenience you all. The other thing I do want, one point of clarification I want to make sure I understand. In rebuilding the deck, it currently is Walmanized lumber on the top surface decks. And are you saying when I go back and like material that I need to go back with Walmanized lumber, or may I use Trex or a similar synthetic deck material for longevity reasons?
I don't have any problem with that.
This is the decking.
Just the decking?
Just the decking.
Yeah, right, just for the decking.
Pardon me?
Just
You're
the
talking about
decking.
the
The deck surface
composite
itself.
material just for the decking.
Yes.
Right. Would the rest be wood?
Correct. The wood framing is existing. The wood posts would have to be replaced, as I said, or at least cut off and properly anchored to the ground and drilled in, concreted in. It needs some footers and replacing the lower portion of it. So I would have to replace a portion of those posts. And it needs maybe another 2 posts, in my opinion, in order to, because it's a bit cantilevered, and it looks like it leans. Now, I haven't taken a level out there because it says don't stand on it. So I've walked the edges a little bit, but I just want to make sure that the surface material that we use is approved. And my preference would be to use a synthetic deck material. I was looking at a product called Ducks, which the local, one of the local suppliers here provide. And it's a plastic wood composition, much like Trex.
It won't be visible.
Yeah, it's in the rear of the building and it won't be visible.
The only thing I'm going to say is the railing,
Uh-huh.
the look of it, and the total number of posts coming down have to be identical. If you
add-
decide to add
May
3
I-
more posts, then they have to make that decision.
I would need to go outside and measure that right now because I'm not sure that the existing railing as it's standing meets code. And I would, even though I don't use the deck right now, I would like it to be usable and functional. So I would want to check that railing to be sure that if you go back just as it is and it doesn't meet code and it's not 42 inches tall and doesn't pass the 4-inch sphere test, I've shot myself in the foot. That doesn't make any sense to me to invest money to bring something back that doesn't meet current building standards.
Maybe we should just channel this till the next as well,
that
too.
should just
We should,
let you do that, and then
Yeah.
put that part on the next meeting.
yeah.
Oh, okay, on the deck?
Yeah,
Well,
because
if you
we're
find
adding
that,
any more
you can just
structural
replace
support.
it as it is, you don't need to come back,
Because
we've
we
approved
passed
it, but
that.
if there's
Right.
something else, you would need to
But
come
when
back.
you
Well-
said you were adding more support, then we do need to look at that. We need to see your blueprint and your materials.
And as
Okay,
Brianna
well-
said too, like if you add one more stick to it, it's gonna have to be ran through.
I mean, we approved you doing exactly what's there.
Okay.
So
I just don't want to rebuild it in the same inferior
Right.
way it's currently
Well,
built.
that's-
I would,
bring it back. I
That's
would just
understandable.
channel this to the next meeting and bring
Okay.
it back and we'll look at that again.
all right,
That's what I
thank you,
would
sir.
do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we having a meeting March 21st or not?
If you don't want it, it'd be easier if we didn't have it.
Yeah.
I want to make it easy. I've got enough work to keep me busy for the next
Okay.
month.
April would be fine.
Well, that
So
would be
if that's
great.
okay with you,
Yes.
then I'll just do that. And what's the date in
Okay.
April?
That is, give me one sec while I pull up the calendar. That
First
would be
Wednesday
the
in April.
5th. That would be April 5th.
What day?
April 5th.
That would be the next regular meeting in April.
All right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready for,
We have another question.
oh, yeah.
So, the trolley situation will be discussed at the April 5th meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
It's been tabled.
Yes.
And I had another question. If you plan on driving the trolleys, are they gonna be licensed?
If they're-
Tagged?
Yeah, if you're driving them, then they need to be licensed and tagged. That's the law if you bring them out on the road.
Yes, they have to be operable, so they have to be able to move, which they would have to be tagged and everything.
Inspected.
Mhm.
Inspected. They would have to function as a normal vehicle anyone would.
But I think it's safe to say we can't say whether the trolleys can sit there or not.
That's correct. So you all
We can
can,
talk about what it looks like, what the
Correct.
paint, whether you can do, the
And how far back we can.
stick-on things, but not whether it can be there. You have to take that up with some other part of the town.
What word would that be?
honestly, it's a mixed-use district, so she's proposing a food truck. A food truck could be parked behind, I guess the last place we had one was Saunders, we had there's a taco truck that parks at the brewery. Like, a food truck is allowed to be on property, so again, that's where it's a difference between a permanent structure, that is footings, all of that, and then a food truck, which is actually permitted through the health department. So a health department permits a food truck, we don't do that, so.
So
Kelly.
doesn't the issue become, if in fact it just gets parked there and sits there month after month, then it is not, it becomes a permanent structure.
It does not. So we currently have, we have one located at a business, that does not move. There's a second one coming to another business in front of another business that will not be moving either.
Where's the other one, where's the one located right now that,
At the brewery.
well, that's not in the historic district.
No, and that's not, there is no difference between those.
Well, Kelly had a comment.
I guess my comment was that what I'm hearing you say is those trucks come and go, they're there for a day, and then they leave, and then they come back maybe in a month or two, and then they leave that day. I don't think, in my opinion, we're talking about the same thing. Even though I know the guidelines and the rules and how it's written may be the same, but in reality, it's not.
Because you're saying those other ones are temporary.
They're temporary.
Yeah.
What, they go to the brewery for a day and then they leave. And
The-
then they may not be back for another 3 or 4 months.
Sure. The brewery-
This is not what she's asking for.
The brewery currently has one that's not moving. It's a new one
But
that's
it's not the
opening.
historic district, and I do understand that, but I understand there are rules, but I also understand that what she's asking for is a business in our backyard with people coming and going. There are concerns for safety, just everything we said. And it's like it's not going anywhere. It's like it's gonna be allowed to happen in our backyard because of what a rule says or what a statement says.
May I ask a question? I know that Main Street through there is mixed use, permitted use, we've researched all that. Is not much of Valley the same, because so many businesses are located on Valley, there's so many parking lots in Valley. I'm trying to understand.
But these are businesses that where people go in and they are customers. They go in, they shop, they leave. They don't gather outside for events in your
Restaurants.
backyard.
We don't
There's
have any
restaurants
restaurants
in
on
that
Valley
historic
Street.
district. There's outdoor seating at some of those restaurants.
Not on
But
Valley
Not right
Street.
in the middle of a neighborhood, but it's just houses
Miana,
on a block.
But
There,
what was what will she be required to get a special use permit to do?
If she wants to have outdoor, like all of the outdoor pieces, we determined in the last zoning update that if she had events completely inside the structure, then she does not have to come through a special use permit with the planning commission. If she had any type of outdoor, and in fact, probably this fire pit as well.
Like
then
even
she
just
would.
serving food out of a bus?
Correct. She
So-
might have to go through that for the
you say.
a special use permit is for, we have it as for all outdoors. I don't know if we can pull up that
Well, and so
language or
that
not,
right
but-
there is what constitutes the
Correct.
nuisance.
And we
That
haven't
piece
really
of it is
gotten
what's-
to any of that
yes,
yet.
okay.
Correct.
So you're asking, so if you have an objection to that, then that would have to
Okay.
be made before, what,
The planning commission, and we
before the
haven't,
planning commission?
we haven't gone, I mean, this, again, this is the first part to the project, so.
So there's that avenue.
So if your objection is to the use that's being made and the outdoor and that type of thing, then what I'm hearing is the place to make that would be before the planning commission.
And we can bring it up at the next meeting would be March 27th? Is that the next planning commission?
Yes.
Okay. And you can also, based on the interpretation of the code, I mean, I'm guessing that we're gonna have to go through that process, but even if they made a determination, that, you know, if she said, let's say she says to me, there's no outdoor event space, and I say, okay, there's no outdoor event space, and so she's got a food truck there, you all can also submit a request for an interpretation from the planning commission. So that is, you are allowed to do that.
Yes.
Would the meeting of the planning commission be open to the public?
They all are, yes, and they are at 5:30 here in the same space, so
And that next meeting would be when?
March 27th.
March 27th.
I just also think that if you, I would like to make one more comment. We talk about setting a precedence. And I think this is something that when we go before the planning commission, that I think it's very important for you all to hear that this is setting a precedent. And this could
sure you have this
I
on.
did.
Okay,
And
so
I just
tell you
wanna
what,
say,
what-
I apologize if you were offended, I did not mean to, I meant to be a blessing to the community.
Okay, do we have any further
make a
business to
motion
take
to
up tonight? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Mr. Geisler?
Aye.